Hello and welcome back to my channel, Whatty If Deku 2O. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off part 20 of our series, What If Everyone Gets Obsessed with Deku and Had Harem? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is Guy number 23 from FanfictionNet. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. Deku isn't here again? The gray-haired girl asked, looking around the common room. Aizawa just dropped Eri off at the Wana dorms, and now the task of looking after her was with the purple-haired teen. Sorry, he's out doing the hero work study. He'll be here tomorrow, though. Gyro answered the small girl, giving a quick pat on the head. After all that happened to her, it was totally understandable that she would grow attached to Midoriya. Is Uraraka-chan here? And Pinky-chan? And Su-chan? They're out doing the same today. Everyone is busy doing something. Gyro then held her hand and led the way. But it doesn't mean we can't have fun ourselves. Did you have breakfast already? She asked. Yes. Do you want to have another one? Eri lit up like a Christmas tree, her eyes shining with excitement at the prospect of having a second breakfast. Can we have apple pie? I'll be owing you that one, but how about pancakes? Cake? Eri tilted her head, clearly confused. Well, it seems that we have a lot of work to do. Gyro wasn't the best cook around, but her mom taught her the basics. And judging by the twinkling eyes Eri had just with the idea of a second breakfast, it would do perfectly fine. The entire class embraced the sentiment of taking care of Eri. It was nigh impossible to resist her cuteness after all. That said, the girls had a slightly more personal bond with the gray-haired girl because of her attachment to Midoriya. It was easy to see them as brother and sister at times, and perhaps this was what awakened that desire to protect her and help her grow out of her shell. Out of the way! A random punk shouted, shoving people aside as he ran through the streets, a sack hanging over his shoulder. People jumped away in surprise or fell to the floor as the thug ran. His face was vaguely shaped after a gecko lizard, and he even had a tail. The reason for all that rush? A bank robbery. Well, technically not a bank, it was a convenience store, but the principle was the same. Get in the building, accost the cashier, take the money, and bust out of the place. Of course, if you actually wanted to try robbing a bank, you would want to have more people with you. This was the kind of law infringement the low-rank criminals will resort to simple and generally harmless without involving hostages. The perfect type of crime for heroes in training to work on. Stop right there. A couple of meters behind the thug, two teens, one with long blue hair and another with a green mane, were on the pursuit. Nejire-chan told them to stop, but no one ever listened. If they did, things would be much, much easier for everyone. Why do they have to run, Deku? Leave it to me. Sparks surged around his body, and the green teen went forward, jumping high and to a wall to avoid the crowd, then dashing after the criminal. He landed right behind him, on time to grab the running thief by the tail, which startled him. Oh oi, that's not fair. And just like that, the tail severed itself from the rest of the body. While it wriggled frantically in the hands of the green teen, the gecko dude took that opportunity to resume his run, but it was a failed attempt as a black thing wrapped around his waist and yanked him back. Oh, you did it, Deku, Nejire-chan cheered as she caught up to them. HHRK, I did it, somehow. Deku said back, making an effort to focus and sustain the black whip. Show's over, please don't resist and stay put, okay? Nejire-chan said as she pulled a pair of handcuffs and approached the punk. Now all they had to do was deliver the thief to the nearest police station. And would you look at that, they even got a small round of applause. Being two young-looking heroes, the crowd was admired for how easily they dealt with the situation. However, even though he complied in not fighting back, the gecko dude didn't shut his mouth. This is so unfair. Why do you two get to use your quirks, but I don't? Just because you're heroes. Bullshit. He kept shouting things like this all the way to the police station, which was pretty annoying to be honest. After that, Deku and Nejire-chan resumed their patrol as Ryukyu instructed them. So, how does it feel to use this new part of your quirk, Deku-kun? Does it hurt? Did you sort out how to make that huge tendril thing yet? She blitzed him with questions, each time getting her face closer to his. No, and not yet. I'm still getting the hang of how to control it, he explained, looking at his open hand. It's a bit different from when I simply punch something. If I lose my focus for a moment, I feel it going haywire and I have to shut down. There's still a long way before I master it, and it came to my mind that, sorry, I was about to rant again. Deku scratched his head apologetically. Unlike middle school, where everyone was mean to him in some way or another, Midoriya could enter his mumbling sprees without getting much flack. Sure, his classmates would give that surprised and weirded out look at him, but it was more due to amusement. So he unconsciously gave himself more freedom to rant over time. It's okay. I know it can be pretty annoying. Wait, what? He stopped for a moment to look at Nejire by his side. It's okay, Midoriya. I mean, Deku-kun, I don't mind at all. In fact, I find it pretty cute when you geek out like that. Midoriya was getting better at taking compliments with time, but it still made him quite flustered. I don't think I ever heard someone call it cute. But it surely is. Sometimes you get all serious, and other times you look so enthusiastic about the topic. Besides, it would be a little weird if I of all people were to complain, don't you think? I guess so. Indeed, Nejire frequently bombarded everyone around her with questions. She was a curious girl and life was too short to let shyness stop you from knowing people and their awesomeness. No need to be gentle on me, I know I can be. What was the word Tamaki-kun used? Overwhelming. She beamed like a 1,000-watt lamp. I know I can be overwhelming at times, but I really can't help it. Whenever I see something or someone, I just need to know them better. Do you think it's weird? What? No, of course not. I just think that Senpai could, take a less aggressive approach, he said, scratching his head. Mirio said something like that once too. I'll keep that in mind, but I'm just being myself. There are certain things we can't change, right? Probably. For example, Nejire then turned around and jumped right in front of Midoriya, standing only a few centimeters away from touching his nose. She was barely an inch shorter than him, so he had a good view from her shiny blue eyes. Her hair had a faint flowery scent to it. Things like this make you get all worked up, right? And it worked like a spell. Midoriya let out a short eep and jumped back. His eyes focused on and off her face as he didn't know where to look. Her light laugh came right after, so this panic state didn't last more than a few seconds. See? That's a very interesting reaction. Pretty cute too, she said with a smile. Geez, I wish I wasn't so jumpy like that, Senpai. Between his flushed cheeks and the brief shock of having his personal space invaded, Midoriya looked a bit down, as if what just happened was a problem. He was kind of past these things, but only when he was with his girls. New environments still put him closer to the edge. Well, Nejire felt the need to correct that. Don't look so sad, Deku-kun. It's just how you are. And if you asked me, I would say I prefer you stay that way. Really? But why? It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, does it? No, she answered without skipping a beat. He looked even sadder. But the fact that you work so hard to overcome it surely is. Huh? That's why I wanted to get to know you better, Deku-kun, Nejire said, taking a few steps back and spinning on her heels to resume her stride. I already know how you are when you get serious, but I want to know the real you. The real me? It's like, I know Deku, but I'm more curious about Midoriya. And without another word, Nejire sprinted ahead, leaving Midoriya without any further meaning to her words. What the wait, Senpai, Nejire-senpai, I mean Nejire-chan. He quickly followed her down the street. At a place far distant from the green teen and the airheaded beauty of the big three, a certain brunette was in the middle of her own work. A villain with a dangerous corrosive peculiarity was finally stopped by the pro-heroes, but the damage done to the surroundings was wide. Many city blocks had the structures of the buildings compromised, and as such, 13 was called to assist with the rescue. Enter the heroes in training currently under her guidance. Yash, the helicopter brought us very quickly to the danger zone. Let's make use of your quirk, Uravity, she said, standing at the open door of the helicopter. Understood. Uravity nodded and touched the space hero's suit, making it weightless. She then extended her hands to the two other students abroad. Hold firmly. If you feel a little nauseous, just close your eyes and breathe in deeply. Janagi and Awais did as the brunette told them, and they jumped off the helicopter, slowly descending to deliver help. Upon landing, Uravity released her zero-gravity and 13 quickly assessed the situation. All right, you'll search the damaged buildings for possible entrapped civilians. Uravity, Emily, use your quirks together to remove debris and clear the way out. Welder, reinforce any parts that don't look structurally safe. Be cautious. Understood, the trio said, moving to the closest building while 13 took care of the streets blocked by more debris. Uoi, is someone here? Try to make a noise so we can find you, Uravity shouted as they entered the damaged building. It looked like a generic office building, and half of the front side had been corroded, resulting in a part of the upper levels crumbling down. Just as the pro-hero instructed, Uravity and Emily worked together to remove the large pieces of concrete, slowly but surely clearing the way. Emily's telekinesis wasn't that strong to move objects so heavy, and it would take Uravity a lot more time to move all that debris on her own, not to mention the possibility of moving something that they shouldn't. That's where Welder stepped in, making sure the remains of the structure didn't collapse. First building cleared, who knows how many more to go. This wasn't a particularly spectacular fight, and luckily the area was evacuated reasonably quickly, so most of the civilians escaped unharmed. The extension of the damage, however, was quite large. I wonder, who pays for this when this kind of stuff happens? The black-haired boy asked out loud while he repaired a support column. There are some insurance companies that specialize in that, Uravity said, currently carrying a boulder about 3 times her size as if it was nothing. After her, a sequence of even larger concrete pieces being guided by Emily. The brunette had her cheeks puffed, for she had to concentrate on not throwing up. Really? I never heard of them, though. Most small businesses don't have it. It can be very expensive, she said, taking pauses to breathe in deeply. The brunette floated the boulders over a pile on the street and released her quirk, also letting out a relieved breath. You seem to know a lot about it, Uravity-chan, said the pale girl. Yeah, my parents own a construction company, but it's not that big. With all the collateral damage of fights, most of it is just out of our scope, and most business owners can't really pay for the insurance. It's pretty rough for a lot of people, she said, walking to the next section that needed cleaning. Oh, I didn't know that, Uraraka, Izuku never said. Yanagi cut her words short, fearing it was a delicate topic she inadvertently brought up. It's okay, I don't actively hide it. I just don't talk much about it. Like it or not, my first reason to become a hero was to earn well so I can give my parents a good life. I still plan to do it, but now there's more to it, I see. Under the mask, Yanagi held a relieved smile. It is a noble cause to pursue, Uravity-chan. You should feel proud of it. They shared a mutual smile at each other. Admittedly, they didn't have much time to get to know each other since they were in different classes, and the time they spent together was mostly centered around Midoriya, so it was nice to talk casually like this. Meanwhile, Awais felt a little uncomfortable being on the sidelines of that chat. You two seem to get along well. Considering you two share the same, he said, then instantly regretted opening his mouth. As for the two girls, a faint blush quickly came to their cheeks. But before the mood could get more awkward, Emily detected a muffled cry coming from somewhere else in the building. Wait, I think I heard someone. They tried to focus on the source of noise, and they couldn't help but wish Shoji and Gyro were around. The muffled cry sounded again, coming from a collapsed part of the floor they were in. Approaching the formed sinkhole, the voice became clearer, and the young heroes sprung into action. "Don't worry, we'll get you out of there. Try not to move if possible and save your energy," Uravity shouted, tapping Welder and Emily on the shoulders as they jumped down the sinkhole, falling like feathers. "Everything is going to be all right. We are here." "Let's go, kiddo. You'll have to go faster if you want to keep up with me, ha 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 ha." Literally jumping through the streets, Midoriya did his best to not fall too far behind the rabbit hero Maruko, who was currently giving chase to a small group of jewelry thieves. The criminals were four, speeding through the busy streets of the city and putting innocent people in danger. "Understood," Deku replied, jumping from walls with full cowl at the maximum percentage he could handle without feeling his body scream at him for it. He knew Maruko was incredibly agile, but actually keeping up with her pace was something else entirely. At least he had successfully adapted Gran Torino's moveset, so he had something to work with. The next level was clearly learning from the dark-skinned lady a couple of meters ahead of him. "Yash, we'll turn it up a notch now. Try not to lose sight of me, kiddo." With a wide grin plastered across her face, Maruko prepared to make a big jump. Her red eyes locked the target on the car and her powerful legs did the rest, leaving a small crack on the wall she was leaning on. She skipped 2 or 3 times on the street before hitting both feet at the back of the car, making them spin and halt. To Deku, who was watching from a distance, it was like she turned herself into a bolt, striking with strength and precision. "Showtime is over, you losers. Get out of the car and surrender, or I'll kick your sorry asses from here to the police station." The thieves, albeit clearly intimidated by the prospect of being kicked by Maruko of all heroes, didn't want to go to jail just yet. Fight or flight instinct kicked in, and the obvious answer was to run away, even if that didn't work in the end. The driver quickly made a U-turn and floored, resuming their escape attempt. Well, I tried the nice way." The tan woman shrugged. Crouching down, hands leaning on the floor, she almost looked like a giant rabbit, and off she went again, darting after the thieves. Right on time for Deku to barely catch up to her. "Oh? Took you long enough, kiddo." "Sorry, I'm not used to going fast like this." "Then watch me and learn, and you better learn quickly. I don't have time for apprentices or whatever." She didn't have to tell him twice. Since that car sped by him and Nejiru-chan while they were on patrol and Maruko literally snatched him from the ground as she hopped after them, Deku had his eyes glued on her every move. Sure, he was also paying attention to the thieves, but it was a rare opportunity he had in his hands. Maruko was known for never considering agencies or hero teams, and she definitely didn't take internships from the hero courses, so the fact that she dragged Midoriya along with her was pretty impressive in itself. They resumed the chase, Maruko hopping and quickly gaining after the thieves while Deku followed from behind. For the unaware citizens in the street, it was like watching 2 streaks pass by, one having green sparks coming out of it. To the jewelry stealers inside the car, the 2 figures getting closer at the mirrors was quite terrifying. "Ah, damn it. Eat shit," one of them, in the back seat, shouted and leaned on the window, aiming what looked to be a Gatling gun fused with his hand. The dude then chewed on a rock and started to shoot tiny sharp bits from the tips of his fingers. "Ha! Now they're trying to put up a fight." Maruko effortlessly avoided the mildly dangerous peoples, jumping from one side of the street to another, all that while grinning like a madwoman. In the back, Deku watched her movements, how she nimbly twisted in midair, how her powerful legs bent every time she landed, only to stretch again as she leaped forward. She was strong and very flexible too, making splits and bending over as naturally as she breathed. Well, it was probably natural to her, all right. Midoriya had to focus on a lot of things while he moved around, one of them being the percentage of 1 for all he was using in order to not bust his legs, but Maruko. Oh no, it was such an integral part of her fighting style that she could afford to make some tricks here and there. It was a little odd that she would do so, but very impressive nonetheless. She completely earned the position at the ranking she had. "Oh oi, don't mess with us, you think this is a game?" The other guy in the back seat poked out the other window. They were clearly terrified, staring at the rabbit hero chasing them with a wide grin and ruby red eyes shining with excitement. "Of course not, you're not even worth the trouble, ha 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 ha." And as she said that, Maruko leaped from a wall, landing on the roof of the car and severely deforming it. The criminals yelped in surprise as the car swayed a little. The rabbit hero crouched to steady herself on the fast-moving object, and her wide grin shone. Seriously, it would be easy to mistake her with a tiger, being so fierce about this hunt. "So, who's going to get their sorry ass kicked first?" she said, ready to pull someone from inside the car. She successfully fished out the one with the Gatling quirk and raised one fist to knock the lights out of him, but then she felt something wrapping around her torso and a pull. Her body was lifted from the car, prompting her to look up at whatever was going on, only to spot the green-haired teen, with some black mass coming out of his hand and working as a rope to lift her. She wondered for a split second what the hell he was doing before she heard one of the other thieves cuss out loud. Apparently, she was just saved from some cuts at her legs, as the other dude on the back seat swung blades coming from his arm in a winged shape. "I can't believe it. I get distracted for 1 second. "Maruko-san, I'm going to toss you over," she heard Deku shout slightly above her. Toss over? What was he planning? At the speed they were, both Deku and Maruko had a lot of momentum. Not only that, he had the reference of All Might's New Hampshire Smash as to how to dislocate air in order to change his trajectory while airborne. The moment Maruko felt her body being pulled in an arc, she immediately got the idea. That crazy kid. "Okay, send me flying, boy." Deku spun his body around while holding the rabbit hero with his black whip, essentially flinging her like a stone. A dark-skinned stone with very powerful legs, and as such Maruko landed on top of the car's motor. The thieves panicked and the driver hit the brakes full force, which, in conjunction with the strength of her landing, made the car halt almost immediately, the back wheels leaving the asphalt for a second or two. They stood frozen like statues for a moment, staring at the cackling hero right in front of them. Once again the fight or flight response kicked in, and they bolted outside the car, scattering in an attempt to escape. Maruko went to the left and swiftly swiped their feet off the floor, making both dudes hit the sidewalk on their backs with a loud oof. On the right, one of them was kicked to the floor and quickly restrained by Deku. The last one almost escaped, or so he thought, because a black mass wrapped around his ankle and pulled back, making him trip and fall face first. The green teen looked like he was making a huge effort, judging by his face, but a grin adorned it nonetheless. "Haha! I don't usually say that, but good work, boy," the rabbit hero shouted as she dragged two dizzy men by their jackets. "Oh, you have handcuffs on you. Good, it saves some time." "Huh? You don't carry any with you?" The emerald teen looked at her with a surprised face as he restrained the second thief. "No, they're kind of annoying to carry around, and most of the time the criminals I captured are knocked out, so why bother?" Maruko said nonchalantly, laughing out loud, much to the terror of the two guys being held by Deku. They would much rather deal with the young hero in training. Soon enough the policemen in the area came around and took the thieves to the local station, leaving Maruko and Deku in the middle of a forming crowd. "Keep laughing, you crazy woman. It's people like you that make this system absolute trash," the driver said as he was pushed into the escorting vehicle. "This is not fair. How do you call yourself a hero? We're not allowed to use our quirks, but you are." The one with the blades was shoved inside next. "Ha! I can't hear you from inside there. Have a nice trip to prison, ha 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 ha." Maruko didn't seem moved by their words in the slightest. In fact, she looked even more energetic than before. So much so that it was a little overwhelming for him, as part of that energy was directed at him in the form of strong pats on the back. Seriously, it stung a little. "I like your style, kiddo, but you have to loosen up those legs, be more nimble and fast to react like me. Sometimes all we have is one moment." she said, and as Midoriya nervously took the odd compliment, the dragon hero landed on the street, changing back to her human form and walking to them. Maruko, what do you think you're doing dragging Deku around like this? Rukiyu didn't look angry, but she certainly wasn't pleased with how her temporary partner borrowed one of her also temporary sidekicks. What? I thought this hero work study was supposed to get them into the job. Maruko said back nonchalantly. The goal is to introduce them into real-life scenarios, not toss them at it. The blondie rubbed a temple as she explained one more time. Nejire appeared behind her, instantly jumping into Midoriya's personal space, eyes twinkling with excitement and curiosity. Ni Deku-kun, how was that surprise car chase? I was talking to you one moment, and then whoosh, you were gone. Was it scary? Can you keep up with Maruko? Thinking of it, are you perhaps a huge fan? Your costume has those bunny ears, and you jump around like one. Are you happy to work with her as a fan? Nejire-chan, slow questions. Rukiyu halted the brunette's question assault on the green teen, much to his relief. But before he could begin addressing the questions, the white-haired woman next to him tugged at his hoodie. She's right though. I didn't notice you were such a big fan, kiddo. Maruko said with a wide grin as she inspected the ears of the green hoodie. Now Midoriya had two options: roll with it and endure the questions from Nejire that would inevitably emerge, or confess the mildly embarrassing origin for this particular detail of his costume's design. To be honest, he hesitated a bit, lowering his voice as the words kept coming. These were not meant to be ears. They weren't? Yeah, actually, it's like, kind of, All Might's haircut. The three women around him took a moment to look at it and try visualizing it, sharing similar puzzled faces. Now even the mouthpiece mask made more sense. Then Maruko pulled the hoodie up, and there it was. Confusion gave place to surprise and bewilderment, most of it coming from Nejire. Gasp, that's so cool, the brunette chirped happily. He looks cute. He still looks more like a bunny though, which makes it even cuter. This certainly is an interesting design choice, Rukiyu calmly added, hiding a smile behind her hand. This kid, he looks so pure and innocent, despite all that happened this year. Ha, what a shame, and here I thought I had a homage. Maruko laughed, patting Midoriya on the back again. But maybe I can change that. I still think you're an amazing hero, Maruko-san. Midoriya turned around enthusiastically, getting close to Maruko in a similar way to what Nejire just did. You're the top female hero of Japan, and your number of solved cases without casualties is really, really impressive. A lot of heroes strive to be like you, I'm sure of it. Fortunately, the Emerald teen was much more self-conscious than his school senpai, so he immediately backed off the rabbit hero's personal space. That reaction didn't escape her ruby-red eyes. Much to the Dragoon hero's surprise, Maruko placed one hand on top of Midoriya's head and ruffled his hair, making the teen look down in embarrassment. Nah, that's cool. I don't care for leaderboards or fan clubs. It's good to see some appreciation though. That interaction didn't last more than 5 seconds, and during that period, Rukiyu looked at them, arms folded over her chest and an eyebrow raised in confusion. Then she noticed it, the dark-skinned lady lightly biting her lower lip. And the blondie was probably seeing things, but it was as if her ruby-red eyes had a gleam to them. Whatever it was, Tatsuna didn't like the sensation it gave her that much. Anyway, now that the situation was solved, they had to make their way back. This little chase led Maruko, and consequently Midoriya, far from Rukiyu's agency, and the dragon hero didn't let that slide. And what's the problem? So long as we catch those idiots, who cares if we go for a little walk? Since Maruko had no agency of her own, she didn't have a district or defined zone of action, which amounted to the perimeter of patrol a hero usually covers. These borders were mostly imaginary, but it helped to organize them and make sure help arrived where it was needed. That little walk of yours dragged Deku almost 3 prefectures from my agency, not to mention that it happened without my knowledge. Do you see the problem now? Rukiyu emphasized, but she felt it would be useless to try and drill this into that hard-headed bunny girl. Ugh, that's why I don't like teams. It's a waste of time with all those little details. The thieves were captured, end of story, right boy? She said, playfully punching his shoulder. I mean, the rules are meant to help us deliver help more efficiently. But I admit sometimes it can be a little restraining. Midoriya understood why the rules and procedures existed, but he would be lying if he said it didn't trouble him. At least once he and his friends had to go around the rules to act, and while it did end in a good outcome, Aizawa made it abundantly clear that the next time would be the last. See? He gets it. I'm starting to like you more, kiddo. Maruko held a wide smile, pointing at Midoriya as if it was the final argument against Rukiyu nagging about rules. The dragon hero simply shook her head. This is training meant for field experience. They're under my responsibility, and if we're going to work together, you have to follow the rules, Maruko. Besides, he has a hero name, you know. The white-haired woman rolled her ruby-red eyes, then suddenly wrapped an arm around Midoriya's neck, pulling him close to her. I don't work with anyone, but I have the feeling we'll get along very well, Deku. Ha 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 ha. Hi, I'll be looking forward to it, he replied nervously. Oh, speaking of names, Deku-kun, where did yours come from? Nejier took his other side as they walked, taking a chunk of his field of vision. Midoriya would have backed off if Maruko wasn't still with her arm hooked around his neck. What should I say? The truth, duh. Nana's voice sounded inside his head. But it's a bit embarrassing. Izuku dear, this is your hero name. You can't be embarrassed about it. How do you expect to make people feel safer if you can't say your name with pride? I know that Nana-san, but still, telling my friends about it is one thing. They know the story behind it. Well, then go and tell the whole story. Are you sure about that? 100% sure, sweetie. Besides, your story is much more inspiring than you think, said the mentor of his mentor, her voice fading into his mind again. Deku-kun, is everything okay? Midoriya finally reacted to the hand waving in front of him. You zoned out for a moment, Nejier said, looking even closer at him with her curious eyes, which prompted him to back up a little, and by doing so, pushing Maruko aside. About my name. Well, it used to be an insult. People called me that a lot when I was little because I couldn't do much, and it always put me down, but then, the uneasiness in his face melted away into a gentle smile. Someone came and changed it. She said it sounded inspiring, like, I can do it, so I decided to embrace it. When he looked up, Midoriya found Nejier staring at him with wide eyes and an O-mouth agape. He could also feel the two pro-heroes staring at him internally. I know it sounds a little dumb, but it really changed my perspective. So I wanted to give others the same idea, that I'm giving my best to protect everyone. He further explained in his usual clumsy self. You're right, it does sound dumb, was a rather harsh comment from the rabbit hero. Don't expect everyone to catch on that first time without that backstory. A hero's name is a powerful thing. It can carry a message, and I think yours does it pretty well, Deku. To counter that, Rukiyu made a sincere compliment. This is one of the best name origins I've heard, Nejier beamed with energy. I couldn't think of a good name for myself in those 3 years, and now it feels like a shame because now I know yours. Please don't feel like that, senpai. You're already an amazing hero. People will recognize you no matter what you're called, he said apologetically, but was quickly dragged out of it as Maruko yanked him around. That's cool and all, but if you want to make the villains shake, you gotta build your name. Make sure they will never forget it, she said with confidence, sticking a thumb to her chest while she pulled him closer, much to Midoriya's embarrassment. It didn't help that ever since he learned Maruko was temporarily teaming up with Rukiyu, Nana didn't stop teasing him about that battle bunny outfit from their, mental exercises. Enough with the chit-chat, and please let go of him, Maruko. We still have a report to file, and we're quite far from the office. Rukiyu said the last part looking straight at the white-haired woman, who simply shrugged. Why don't you just fly us all the way there? They stopped for a moment, and the dragon hero sighed, shaking her head. I'm not a taxi, you know, she said, taking a few steps back so she could transform without knocking anyone. Meanwhile, Maruko chuckled and both Nijire and Midoriya exchanged excited looks. It's not every day that you could fly with Rukiyu's dragon form. The pink-haired girl with horns flicked through the channels, trying to find something interesting enough to help her unload. Her agency of choice, along with Hagakure and Aoyama, wasn't exactly an easy place to work. Especially because the samurai old man was always doing that pompous, ancient wisdom talk, and while Ashido knew it was important, half of the time her brain couldn't catch up on it. And she thought math with ectoplasm was complicated. Ashido, can we talk a bit? Her bubble popped when someone called her name. Turning around, Ashido found the hardening teen himself, Kirishima, standing behind the couch next to where she was sitting. Pyo, Kiri, what's up? She asked with her usual upbeat vibes, or so she thought. Are you all right? You look tired. Kirishima said, showing a bit of concern. Oh, I'm fine, but I would be lying if I said I'm not tired. This is more demanding than last time. It feels like the pros really want us to get into the job, you know? Yeah, I get you. Fat is also taking us for more jobs than last time, Kirishima said, leaning on the couch with his elbows. You went to Fatgum's agency again, right? With Tetsutetsu and Amajiki-senpai. Mamechiman, and we have to work our asses off. Ever since we took down the Shy Hasakai, a lot of smaller groups started to try and take their place. Man, why can't those guys just give up and get a normal job already? He said, letting his head hang low for a moment. It would be much easier, right? Well, it is as Fatgum says, when fighting villains, making them lose their will to fight is everything. Kirishima puffed his chest a bit as he proudly quoted his current mentor. Ashido laughed lightly with her friend. You sure look like a pro already, talking like this. Anyway, what was it that you wanted to talk about? Oh, right. He looked away hesitantly, or maybe checking to see if anyone else was nearby. Can I ask you a personal question? How personal? She inquired back. Very, very personal. Kirishima wasn't one to walk around eggshells. If something or someone was bothering him, he would be as straightforward as possible to solve it. It was the manly thing to do, so this hesitation from him was new to her. Okay, shoot it. Ahem. He cleared his throat and stood straight up, but then decided it would be better if he got closer. Ashido, how do I put this? What exactly do you like about Midoriya? The pink-haired girl looked at her redhead friend with a confused face for a moment. Did she get this right? What do I like about Midoriya? She had to confirm if her hearing was all right. What do you find attractive in him? Kirishima further explained, but that only made her more confused. First, can I ask why you're asking me this? Is this too personal? No, yes kinda, but that's not exactly my point. Usually, guys don't usually ask this about other guys, at least as far as I know. Well, to be honest, I just wanted to know your opinion on that. Oh, and what for?
Well, Kirishima scratched the back of his neck nervously, then got closer and spoke in a lower tone. Please don't tell everyone, but I'm trying to help Bakugo get a girlfriend.
This evening was getting better and better. Wait, what? For real? She asked incredulously, and he nodded in confirmation. Ashido then burst into laughter. Oh my god, this is priceless. Ha 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 ha. Ha? He stared at the pinkette with a puzzled face. Where was the joke? Ha 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 ha. Sigh phew, I haven't laughed like this in a while. Thanks, Kiri, she said, wiping away a fake tear. She then looked at the hardening teen, and he kept staring back at her with that lost expression. Are you serious? He once again nodded, prompting a snort to escape from her, but this time she managed to contain herself. What's wrong with that? I'm trying to help my bro. Well, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I find it absolutely hilarious and quite poetic too. All this time shitting on Izuku for being a nerd and saying he would die a virgin only to end needing help, hoping he can land a girlfriend. When you put it like that, it was hard to argue against that, right? But I have another question. Why do you ask me what I like about my boyfriend? Well, I thought that since Midoriya got so many of you girls interested in him, there has to be a reason, right? Something that makes him pretty much, irresistible. She could see Kirishima was rather uncomfortable asking her those things. Perhaps he imagined it was girl talk, or maybe it was the fact that he might have had a crush on her. Either way, she decided to not clown on Bakugo for now and help her friend help his bro. What do I like about Izuku? There are a lot of things, actually. The more you know a person, the more you learn to love them. At least that's how I feel. But I suppose the first thing to catch my eye was his looks. What about his looks? I don't know. How do I put it? Imagine a cute fluffy dog face stacked on top of a strong, steaming hot, delicious body with big biceps and a broad chest, toned thighs, abs that can grate cheese, and that round butt. Ashido broke out of her daydreaming when she noticed Kirishima slowly taking a step back. This sort of stuff. She then looked away to hide her lightly flushed cheeks. So he looks cute as a puppy, but also hella manly. Yeah, something like that. This will be hard then. I don't know if Bakugo can pull a cute look, he said, one hand under his chin. Try getting him to pull a decent human being. That alone will be a huge improvement. Ashido didn't hold back in her acid comments. But for real, Kiri, there's not much use in trying to imitate someone else. Not everyone has the same tastes. Mine are not universal. That said, a girl loves to see a guy being himself. He just has to be the type of guy she is into. That sounds awfully vague. You're right, she admitted. But these things are complicated because everyone is different. You may find some patterns, but at the end of the day, everyone has their own preferences. She concluded, and the response seemed good enough for him, judging by his expression. That makes sense, I suppose. Still, why do all of you girls go for Midoriya? Is there something you all like about him? Do you really want to know? What? Is it some top secret thing? No, I just don't want you to think it's that important. I mean, it is kinda important, but that's not all there is to a relationship. It definitely helps a lot. But look, Kiri, just don't think too much about it, okay? All right, now you got me curious and worried. He looked at her with his arms folded and an eyebrow raised. This time, Ashido looked around to make sure no one was around. Okay, I'll be honest. Me and the girls, we all love Muscles from the bottom of our hearts, and that's part of why we decided to share him. Share, right? And the other part? The pink-haired girl raised her hands and made a gesture, demonstrating a certain length. It took Kirishima a solid minute to get it, and when his mind clicked, his eyes widened in surprise. I mean, he didn't think he was that far behind, not that he walked around comparing himself to other dudes, but still. For someone like Midoriya, judging only by his appearance, you wouldn't think it would be, well, all that. Again, don't think too much about it. There's this saying about knowing how to use it. And trust me, Muscles knows very well how to use it. Every single inch of it. All right, that's enough details for me. Kirishima turned around and was ready to leave. He didn't need to know that much about the relationship of his friends. He didn't want to either. However, before he could take his leave, he felt her hand land on his shoulder. Kiri, can I ask you a question now? She looked a little nervous, just like him at the start of this conversation. Yeah? Do you see me any differently now that you know the truth? Do you think I'm a slut or something? The question caught him totally off guard. To be honest, it really surprised me. The idea of you being part of that never crossed my mind. Ashido prepared to hear some words of disappointment. But I don't think you're a slut. Whatever makes you happy, I guess. Huh? It wasn't exactly the response she expected. I mean, you seem pretty happy with Midoriya. You all do, for that matter. I can't say I really agree with this, but that's because I think a man is supposed to pick one girl. Maybe I'm the weird one. No, you're not weird, Kirishima. Me and the girls, we know this is not very, conventional. We set this aside because, for starters, no one was willing to let go and it would end in bloody murder. She said in a joking tone, but given some past experiences that now made a lot more sense, Kirishima wasn't sure it was completely out of the question. And we sort of learned to share, and I kind of enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have muscles all for myself, but it wouldn't be as fun. Does it make sense? Not really, but it seems you all are beyond common sense. And not in a bad way. It's fine. We're all a bit crazy anyway, some more than others. She said the last part in a whisper to herself. An awkward silence came between them until Kirishima decided to take his leave. All right, so, thanks for that insight, Ashido. No problem, ah ha ha ha. More uncomfortable silence and weird smiles. Kirishima slowly retreated, sort of maintaining eye contact. Kiri, she called before he went upstairs. That thing you said about choosing one girl. It's really sweet. I'm sure whoever you choose will be super lucky. I see, thanks. No biggie. Ashido had a hunch Kirishima had a minor crush on her. It was very subtle since most of the time he was with the boys, but somewhere during the year she was almost certain of it. Perhaps it would fade as he focused more on the hero training. Perhaps it would blossom more down the line. Either way, she knew him from middle school, and she knew he was a good guy. So Ashido wanted to make sure she didn't hurt his feelings. More than that, she meant what she just said. Whoever ended up winning his affection would be very lucky. That felt nice. Suddenly Ashido wasn't as tired as before. But then a weird, creepy sensation came up her spine, making her shiver. What could possibly be the source of those bad vibes? Her eyes noticed in the doorway to the kitchen a small dark purple cloud of negative energy. No, it was just the resident midget, staring intently at her. Holy, how long have you been standing there? 17 minutes, he replied dryly. Oh my, get the hell out, Minta.
Sorry for keeping you two here that late. We have a couple of extra reports to make. My agency is not that big after all, so I have to do it myself. Rukiyu apologized for the inconvenience as she filled in another incident report.
It's okay, Ryukyu-san. We like to help, right, Deku-kun? Nejire said, taking care of her own pile of work.
Yeah, I'm glad I can help. Though I have to say, this is nothing like what I expected from being a pro hero, he said, bewildered at the amount of extra work that came with this career. Yes, that's why most pro heroes form agencies. That way, you can have a legal team of sorts to take care of these things. Others, like Maruko, simply ignore it altogether. The paperwork is not strictly necessary, but it helps the police in many ways. Identifying patterns, uncovering proofs of unsolved cases, and even showing on a map where we need to act more. It's only possible because we work along with the police. Rukiyu said as she finally finished her paperwork, placing the last report in a pile and getting up from her desk. It was at this moment that she noticed Midoriya looking at her with beaming eyes. It's like listening to the wisdom of an ancient dragon in stories. As expected from Rukiyu-san. There it was, Midoriya's fan mode, albeit toned down a few notches. The compliment didn't fail to surprise her. I don't consider myself that smart, but I'm glad you can learn something valuable with me. Now, let's go you two. You don't have to escort us all the way, Rukiyu-san. Deku-kun and I can go back just fine, said the brunette, and Midoriya nodded in agreement. No, it will be faster if I take you two there. Just like earlier, both teens exchanged excited looks. The blondie shook her head slightly. Seriously, for such promising heroes in training, they acted pretty childishly. She wouldn't deny it didn't pull a string in her heart, however, as Ruko loved kids. And after dropping the two teens at you, And returning to her office, Tatsuma found the rabbit hero leaning at the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, and a sly smirk that turned into a grin as she approached. So, do you plan on making these rides a thing now? Rukiu simply walked by. It was getting late, and she wanted to rest. She wasn't one to operate late at night. Wow, did you really ignore me like that? Or is your head on something else? Maruko kept on teasing the blondie. I do, in fact. What I am thinking of is how do you plan to make this partnership work, even if it is temporary? She said, clearly tired of her partner's attitude. Ah, don't be so stuck up, Tatsuma. All these rules and procedures are lame and boring and only slow us down. Yuzajama walked after the dragon hero. Tatsuma could sense her grin even with her back turned to the rabbit hero. Sorry if I don't have the disposition of a bunny in heat, she said, sitting on her desk and holding a serious look towards the white-haired lady. Ouch, right in the quirk stereotype. You know, you could always have said no when I asked to form a team. Yusajama stopped in front of her. And you could have avoided it altogether like you always did. Tatsuma stood up again and stepped forward. I decided to give it a chance because I thought you were willing to cooperate now. They were facing each other, ruby red eyes staring at yellow ones. One held a grin, the other a serene but stern expression. Yuzajama folded her arms in front of her, pushing her chest up a little. Tatsuma rested both hands on her waist. There were only the two of them in the room, and they were a couple of centimeters apart. Leaning forward would cause them to headbutt each other. The silent staring contest went on for a while. The dragon hero narrowed her eyes, making her slitted pupils look more menacing. The rabbit hero responded by widening her grin. Her ruby red eyes seemed to glow with fire, and her ears pointed backward.
What are you planning, Rumi?
Don't play dumb, Ruko. You and I know why I'm here. If you looked close, one could see the corner of Ruko's mouth twitching a little. It was as if she tried to resist baring her sharp teeth. Humph, don't do anything stupid, she said, walking past Rumi. Now wasn't the time for these discussions. Sure thing, as long as you don't do something stupid either, like trying to pass me behind, for example. This made the dragon hero freeze in place and look back at her. Is that a challenge? Only if you think you can compete. They sent another intense stare at each other. The tension in the air was sending sparks flying. Do you think this is a game? No, Rumi answered nonchalantly as she walked past the blonde lady and out of the office, giving a tap on her shoulder. But I do plan to score a little bunny for myself. Bye-bye. That left Ruko to close everything and go rest at her place. She let out a heavy sigh, bringing a closed hand to her chest. She didn't like the sensation of swelling there, even less now that Rumi made it clear she had second intentions with this partnership of theirs. Should she call it off? Would that stop her? Ruko felt a little confused about this predicament, but he was still under her wing, and as such, she had to make sure he was safe. Both of them, Midoriya and Nejiire. It's been 2 weeks of hard work for the students of UA's hero course. Between the work at the agencies and the homework, they only had narrow windows to relax and wind up a little. To the girls, in particular, the matters were a little more serious, as they would need to catch up on a lot of subjects due to their 1-month-long house arrest. So to mitigate this upcoming problem, they decided to make their study group a class out of class. The only issue was the extra component, namely Toga Himiko. Kyoka-chan, can you play that song again? The blondie pushed and pulled Gyro back and forth while the purple-haired girl focused on not poking Himiko's eyes with her jacks. Please, please. I heard you singing when I walked by your door. Come on. No means no. And let go of me, damn it. She pushed her back, but Himiko insisted on keeping physical contact, holding on to Gyro's waist while her head was pushed back. But I'm the only one of the group that has never heard you sing. Su-chan, help me out here, she whined, trying to find an ally in the frog girl. Don't call me like that. It's a Sui for you, Ribbit. Aw, don't be so shy. We're all friends here ni Momo-chan. We already covered a good amount of topics. Tell Kyoka-chan to play something for us. The raven-haired teen felt her eyebrow twitching in annoyance. Yayurazu wasn't sure for how much longer she could listen to the sound of Himiko's adorable voice. Her hands held tighter to the book she had in her hands. This study group is meant to help us prepare for the accumulated work at the end of the house arrest. We have to cover as much as we can. It was pretty obvious that she was containing herself to not lash out at the blondie. I know, but this is so boring. It's been only an hour and a half, Hagakure said. It seems that the sentiment was traveling from one girl to another. A very, very long hour and a half. I already study a lot in the classroom. Why do we have to do homework and stuff like that? She said, flopping on the bed and letting her upper body slide and hand from the edge of the mattress. Ooh, what a comfy bed you have here. Momo-chan, do you get banged in it often? A loud clap noise sounded, getting everyone's attention in the room. Uraraka just closed her book shut, with considerable strength. She then got up, eyes closed shut and hands balled into fists. Excuse me for a moment, she said, spinning on her heels and walking to the balcony. The girls looked at her with confused faces until the brunette leaned on the guardrail and let out a loud, frustrated cry. No profanities whatsoever, just a long "amae" that echoed in the cold night. She came back inside, closed the glass door after her, returned to her place, and sat again on the floor. I'm sorry, where were we? Ah yes, this equation here. The girls looked at her as if Uraraka had grown a second head, but in reality it was perfectly understandable. Ashido scratched her head a bit, trying to figure out how to solve this problem. Ectoplasm Sensei had explained it before, but she couldn't remember the way to solve it. How is it done again? Oh, this one is pretty easy. You just have to replace this term here with x squared and then solve it normally. The pink-haired girl moved away as Himiko's head popped in her field of vision from behind, pointing at the book in her hands. Whoa, back off, she pushed Himiko back. Fufufu, no need to get flustered with me, Mina-chan. Who's getting flustered? Ooh, I swear, one of these days, Himiko's inability to read the room, rather, her willingly refusing to do so, was something that always put Ashido on the edge of exploding. Trying to keep it cool, she focused again on the problem, and, Himiko was right. She swapped terms of equation and way to solve problem became much clearer. That was quite easy. Hey, how do you know how to solve that? She turned to the blondie, who was once again hanging upside down from Yayurazu's bed. Well, I just paid attention to Ectoplasm Sensei's explanation. It's not that hard. All you gotta do is memorize how to solve it and… No. Why do you understand it so easily? I thought you said the classes were boring. And they are. But I figured out Izuku wouldn't like dumb girls with smooth brains, so I'm showing I can be smart too, just like him. Oh, and Momo-chan too. It was a bit of a shame and quite insulting that Himiko, a girl that dropped from school, was having an easier time handling some of the more difficult subjects. She had quite a lot of catching up to do, but ever since she started attending classes and most importantly, paying attention, Himiko showed a surprisingly good academic performance, much to the girls' dismay. It's really not that hard when Ectoplasm Sensei explains it so well. Oh, I can repeat what he taught, then we'll finish this pile of homework in no time, and we can do something fun together after. What do you think? She asked the group enthusiastically, only to receive death glares. The saving grace of this situation was that Midoriya was so busy with the hero work studies at Rukyu's agency that he wasn't around as much to be tormented by the annoying blondie. Uraraka excused herself and got up again, this time heading towards the bedroom's door. Are you done already, Ochako-chan? Are you going to see Izuku and FCK? Can I go too? Uraraka was visibly shaking, but then she sighed and simply banged her forehead on the wooden door. Why? He sat in silence at the kitchen table with a plain face. Across it, with arms folded, Ida hung his head low in ponderation. To his left, Todoroki, with the same neutral expression as always. On the right of the tall teen with glasses, Shiro. And leaning on the doorway in his typical brooding position, Birdhead himself, Tokoyami. So let's recapitulate. Uraraka-san was the first one to make a move on you. Ida asked Midoriya. Yes, he answered. You two kept your relationship a secret for a while, and at some point the other girls discovered it. Yes, under less than ideal circumstances. They initially got mad at you for a big misunderstanding, which led to some aggressive behavior towards you. Yes. And at some point, that hate turned into passion. Yeah. The tall teen threw his hands up in the air. I'm lost. Midoriya scratched his head sheepishly. I gotta admit, I don't know exactly how I got there either. It sort of happened. So the girls simply jumped on the harem idea without questions? Todoroki asked. Without questions is not how I would put it. It was more like, a peace treaty. Oh, sure thing. They got super possessive of you at some point, so I imagine there would be bloodshed if they decided to fight each other for you, said Shiro. Revelry in the dark. I don't know, sometimes I think about it, and I can't help but wonder if I should have just picked one. His mind seemed to wander a bit. You regret forming your harem, Midoriya? Todoroki questioned. And no, not at all. What I mean is that it all started because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but perhaps there was another way. Regardless, I'm happy with how things are now. Well, who wouldn't love to have a crowd of girls falling head over heels for them, and super good-looking girls at it? Said the tape boy. I guess I'm living a dream, right? Ah ha ha ha. Even so, I would like to ask you, Midoriya. How do you handle your time? Ida asked, albeit he looked a bit uneasy in doing so. How do I handle my time? As in, how do I spend time with them? Yeah, among other things. Well, we just hang out together whenever we can. I can't see the girls from 1B a lot, for obvious reasons, and the same goes for Hatsune.
And Kayama-sensei and MT. Lady Sanshiro added with a sly smirk, prompting a faint blush to appear in Midoriya's cheeks.
Why, yeah, them too. We just try to make the most of our time together at the joint training, for example. Now that the secret is out, I feel like we can spend even more time together. He sounded pretty happy with that prospect. You also spent nights with them in deep intimacy, right? Todoroki added with his serene bluntness, which served to make the green teen's face more flushed. Well, what can I say? They can be quite meaty. There was this hint of smugness coming from him that simply didn't match Midoriya as they knew him. As students from such a renowned institution as UA, we should not engage in carnal desires like this, Ida said, fixing his glasses. But regardless, I'm trying to understand where this mutual sentiment came from. So, Midoriya, do you have any more preferences? Preferences, huh? Honestly, no, but I do have particular things I like about them. That basically answers my question of whether you're an ass or tits man, Shiro said nonchalantly. Shiro-san, some less vulgar language would be good. What? I'm being honest. Particularly, I have a liking for thighs. All the eyes quickly focused on the bird-headed teen at the doorway. It is a less common preference, I am aware. Exchanging some surprised looks, they kept on discussing. What Ida wants to ask is if you have a favorite girl. Once again, Todoroki came straight to the point, much to Ida's dismay. I never said such a thing. But didn't you support Midoriya and Uraraka being a couple back then? Ida did the thing with his glasses, averting his gaze from the inquiring half-hot, half-cold teen. I mean, the chemistry was already there. I just pointed out the obvious. Wait, what? Midoriya looked at his friends with a lost expression. Nothing. Just that a while back, when the girls were all up in arms protecting you, we made some guesses on who you would end with. The tape boy explained. We noticed all of them probably held some feelings for you. We just never imagined they would go this far. Tokoyami said, and from his shoulder dark shadow sprouted, mimicking its host's posture. Revelry in the dark. Exactly, Dark Shadow. Looking back, it was hard not to notice, Midoriya said. We just took it for a fact that they liked you because it was pretty obvious. The real question was, who did you like back? Zero added. So, do you have any favorites? This was an easy one. It wasn't the first time Izuku had considered it, the sum of his feelings towards all these girls that circled him and showered his person with affection and love. In fact, as the harem grew, he started to feel a deeper connection with everyone, seeing their antics when everyone was together. He was basically the common trait of all the girls involved, rather, this deep love for him. It was because of that love that the harem existed, to begin with, along with an agreement on not tearing each other's throat open. If he could love more than one girl equally, and returning their feelings did make them happier, why shouldn't he then? Of course, he wasn't actively looking to expand his already large number of girlfriends, but lately his mind had been more at ease with these things, mostly compared to how he felt at the beginning. It certainly wasn't the norm, but it was what worked for him and all of his lovers. That said, Midoriya still had a lot in himself that didn't change, and one of these things was his first love for Uraraka. I wouldn't go that far to say she is my favorite, but I definitely have a special place in my heart for Uraraka. And not that I don't have the same for the others, I do love them all equally, but how do I put it? The first love is always special, right? That should be expected. Usually, it is a thing that changes your entire world. That surprisingly sentimental answer came from Todoroki, of all people, tranquil as usual. They stared at him in silence for a moment. Did I say something weird? No, I was just surprised you would make such a heartfelt comment, Zero explained, and the others nodded. I see. When you put it like that, yeah, I think it would be Uraraka. She was the first one I had. Never mind. So, on the occasion of having to legally marry one of them, would you choose Uraraka? Ida pressed further. Maybe. I did think about it a couple of times, but I haven't come to a conclusion yet. Probably because it's a little early to talk about marriage. But since your situation is really special, you should keep that in mind, right? Wow, you really want to see your ship sail, huh? Zero commented from the sidelines with a smile. It has nothing to do with my personal preferences whatsoever. I'm just looking out for my friend's well-being in the near future. Ida responded to the tape boy, quite excited about it. If I had the opportunity to be in your situation, I would easily pass, Midoriya, Tokoyami said out of nowhere, looking at the green teen. It feels too much of a hassle hanging out with 16 girlfriends. I mean, I agree with Tokoyami on that. Most dudes dream of having a bunch of girls around them, but just between us, how do you, sleep with them all at once? Zero asked in a whisper, and the others leaned forward to listen. Well, if Midoriya could get any redder now, he would have. It involves a lot of energy, and I mean a lot. The girls can be quite eager, and we just go one at a time, and it sort of just works. The boys formed some mental images of the possible scenarios coming from this. Not necessarily the lewd part of it, but rather the logistics required in order for Midoriya's harem to work. What happens when you're not as willing or with enough energy to do that big task? Ida asked again. As I said, the girls can be pretty needy and a little bit unhinged at times. The dark abyss is tempting and invites those who seek it to an endless feast, Tokoyami casually added, once again gathering the attention of the other boys. You're not that far from the real deal. Midoriya said, scratching the back of his head shyly. He used to black out a lot back then. I don't know how I would feel in your place, but I can see why you chose to keep them all by your side. It is not only about the sec, the girls really love every aspect of you. You must feel blessed, Midoriya. Once again Todoroki came with a heartfelt comment. For someone who was usually pretty oblivious, he was very good at this. I can see you getting a lot of girls after you too, Todoroki, Zero said. You think so? Yeah, I mean, you already look like a model or a boy band member. With all that smooth talk, a lot of girls would be swooning at you. The tape boy said, confident in his words. Todoroki meditated on that for a moment. I guess you have a point. When Bakugo and I were taking the remedial course, we had to interact with a lot of children. Some of the girls were particularly interested in a mirage of me. A mirage? Ida asked. Yes, one of the other students had a quirk that created illusions. She was the girl that was impersonated by Toga during the provisional license exams. Wait, that girl from Shiksu High, Shiro said in shock. The others also looked quite surprised. As for Midoriya, the memories of that day sent a small shiver down his spine. With all that happened, knowing Himiko was so close to him even back then was off-putting, to say the least. So she had to take the remedials because of Himiko, the green teen thought out loud. Correct, but she didn't seem to mind that much. Even so, someone got in a lot of trouble because of her. The silence grew in the kitchen, so Shiro tried to brighten up the mood again. Anyway, what kind of illusions did she do, Todoroki? Just like you said, she used my image to make some young girls more cooperative. It worked pretty well for a while. A quirk that creates illusions. Man, I wish I could talk to her about it. The boys looked at Midoriya as he mumbled something. They could practically see the cogs turning above his head, but the greater concern, if you could call it that, was about what would happen when he approached her. There was a certain pattern to follow and a lot of precedence. I thought it was a pretty impressive quirk. It managed to get the attention of the kids pretty easily. Haha, so that's your parameter, the tape boy laughed lightly. Well, I think this serves to prove that it's not only Midoriya here that has a charm for the ladies, Shiro said, nudging Ida with his elbow. This should not be our focus as heroes in training, but I do agree. That said, Ida did the thing with his glasses again, flashing a confident grin. I heard that tall guys are pretty popular among women of all ages. To attain yourself to the obscure minds of others is to bind yourself in invisible shackles and plunge into a dark void, said Tokoyami, followed by an awkward silence as the boys tried to absorb this apparent piece of wisdom. I believe Tokoyami-kun means we should not worry that much about impressing every girl around us. The tall teen explained, looking at his bird-headed friend for confirmation, and Tokoyami nodded in agreement. He was getting better at translating Chunibyo dialect. You're mostly saying that because you don't have a queue of girls after you. No, wait, you're working with hawks. That's like the best shortcut to becoming popular, Shiro said, realizing Tokoyami could also easily outclass his popularity with the opposite gender. I don't see your point. I'm simply working with hawks. I don't look like him at all. It's called looking cool by association. Besides, I bet some girls would love that edgy side of yours. Before Tokoyami could counter-argue by saying he was not edgy at all, Todoroki cut them off by thinking out loud. Maybe Midoriya simply has the strongest charm, or something that every girl likes. Ooh, bro, you sure you don't want to date him? The tape boy teased. Why would I? Once again, Todoroki managed to pass as the clueless in the room. However, he did stare intently at Midoriya for a moment. Is everything all right, Todoroki-kun? Midoriya asked him, not being used to this kind of direct contact from the icy hot teen of all people. Yes, I just had an idea, but I have to think more about it. Right. Anyway, Midoriya, my man, you gotta teach us how to be this likable. I'm not desperate, but it would be nice to have a tip for the future. Shiro said, somewhat mimicking Kaminari in behavior. I honestly don't know what to say. I'm not exactly an example of confidence. Midoriya scratched his head nervously, then he seemed to space out, focusing on the present after a few seconds. I guess just be a nice person, show whoever you want to impress that you care about them, and be yourself. That's some really vague advice, you know. Did one of the girls tell you that? Well, sort of. Yeah, I feel like I lucked out in that. Girls like guys that work out and look fit, right? Yeah. Most of us have this covered out, so there has to be something else. I know it looks like I have some infallible secret, but that couldn't be further from the truth, said the green teen. They gathered for this meeting because, truth be told, no one expected Midoriya to have a harem. It was more out of curiosity than disdain that motivated them, though. With the exception of the purple midget, who was seething with envy, everyone seemed pretty cool with the new situation, even Bakugo. Well, as cool as Bakugo could be anyway. Well, I guess there are no shortcuts for this kind of thing. Just don't go making every girl in your vicinity fall in love with you. Leave some to your bro here, ha 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 ha. Trust me, I don't do that on purpose, and it's not like I actively expand it anyway. So you don't look to add more girls to your harem in the future? Todoroki questioned. Was that disappointment in his face, or was Midoriya seeing things? Not really. I'm more than fine with how things are now. I see. It still baffles me that you convinced so many girls to agree on this sharing thing, Ida said. Well, me too. It's almost as if you had a quirk for that. Todoroki eyed him suspiciously again. See, can we change topics now? Another day came, and the school was busy as usual, except for the students that were not here due to their work studies. It seemed many more pro-heroes had admitted heroes in training this time, not only from you, but of all schools across the board. But even so, they were still students, and they had to keep up with the normal curriculum too. That said, the class period just ended, and at that time, most of the teenagers would go back to the dorms and do their homework most of the time or simply unwind in any way they could. However, a certain blue-haired third year had very specific plans. Rather, she had questions that were begging to be answered, and right now she could only think of one person to seek this knowledge. Kayama-sensei, do you have a minute? Hado barged into the teacher's room, beaming with her adorable energy and a big smile. The teachers had told the airhead to not enter so loudly, but it was like asking Hound Dog to not act like one, especially when he was angry. Nevertheless, Kayama perked up at the sound of her name being called. Hado-san, please don't make so much noise, she said as per the procedure. What can I help you with? You barely ask for help. The members of the Big Three were called that for a reason. They were at the top of what I had to offer in terms of the next generation of heroes, and that included their academic performances. Well, there's something I need to ask you. It's been bothering me for a while now. Despite her words, she didn't seem any less hyped about it. Then go on and ask away, Kayama said nonchalantly. Given her combat style, she wasn't exactly the go-to of the majority of students when it came to things like problems with super moves and difficulties in developing quirks. Her lessons weren't that hard either, so it generally wasn't a cause for grade struggles. Most of the time she gave counseling in choosing good hero names or maybe picking a better-looking costume, and she was fine with it. This wasn't spoken of, but Kayama had a say in some of the costumes her colleagues used. Considering Hado still hadn't decided on her hero name, the dark-haired lady was expecting the young lady to ask for help on the matter, and she calmly sipped from her coffee. How do I seduce a boy? PFFFT. Kayama almost spat the drink in her mouth back into the mug. Needless to say, she got caught completely off guard with that question, even coughing a bit. Sorry, Hado-san, what was that? Perhaps she misheard. How do I seduce a boy? No, there was no mistake here. Kayama's eyes turned to the side where the rest of her coworkers were. Ishiyama seemingly didn't pay attention as he drank his tea, or he did an impressive job not showing. Then again, it was considerably easier to conceal your emotions when you literally had a cement block for a face. Kan was less discreet, and she felt like the fanged man was trying to bore holes in her head by staring intensely. At least Aizawa lent her a little help, walking out of the room and dragging Yamada along, wrapping his capture bandages around the loud man's mouth while doing so. For that, Kayama was grateful. Hado-san, nothing personal, but why are you asking me about that? If anyone asked or talked about it, there wasn't much Kayama could do to prevent her little secret with Midoriya from being spread. Surprisingly, in these 2 weeks that have passed, she didn't see much of a change, aside from the 2 classes of the hero course. Even then, it was only that awkward mood, not at all malicious, and for that she was very grateful. They didn't go around commenting and gossiping about her shenanigans with the green teen, which helped relieve some of the tension she felt. So having Hado Nejire come to ask her about it did a great job at putting Kayama back on the edge. Well, I thought about that for a while, and I think Kayama-sensei is the most confident woman I know when it comes to looks. And you're pretty popular with the guys, so I thought, there's no one better to ask. The sincere and quite wholesome answer surprised Kayama once again. So Hado didn't know about her secret, or it didn't really factor in her decision to seek her advice. Truth be told, the lady felt a little honored. She didn't exactly think of herself as an example for the next generations, at least in that regard, but it felt good to be looked upon as a confident woman. The majority of the top-tier heroes were men, and she didn't see a problem in it, but it could be a little intimidating for young women starting their careers. If there was anything she could contribute to boosting their confidence, she would do anything within her reach. So, what is your secret, sensei? Why don't we go somewhere with a little more privacy? She suggested with a warm smile. I'm fine talking here, though. The smile wavered a bit, but Kayama would not let her paranoia of being secretly judged by her coworkers stop her from helping this young lady. But be well then. But before that, what exactly brought you here to ask me this? Well, there's this person that I know, but I want to know him better. He's a very nice person, and I am so curious about the side he doesn't show. But he won't let his guard down around me that easily. So I thought that maybe if I seduced him, he would open up. You open up to people you like, right? Kayama didn't expect a reason like that. Or maybe she should, because this is Nejire we're talking about. Regardless, the brunette's reasoning led her to think seducing this someone who she assumed was either one of the two boys forming the big three with her. Personally, based on her brief description, Kayama thought she was talking about Amajiki. The adult lady was no stranger to being confused and unsure about her own feelings, so she decided it would be in the girl's best interest to sort out Hado's real feelings first. That's really nice of you, Hado-san, but why try seducing him? You could simply befriend him, don't you think? Well, yes, and I think we're friends. We've been working together for a while now, and we're pretty good at it if you ask me. But still, he won't show me his other side, you know? It's like he's always strict when around me. Not everyone feels comfortable to expose themselves like this. That's why I thought of seducing him. That's a very, interesting choice of words. You do realize seducing implies making him like you, right? I thought he already liked me, but he's always jumpy when I'm around. I know I can be overwhelming at times, but shouldn't he get used to it after some time? Well, everyone has their own pace for these things. Sensei, do you think he doesn't like me? It was rare to see Hado sad, and even though she still looked like a ray of sunshine, there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. I wouldn't jump to that conclusion. Maybe they're struggling with their own nature, trying to open up to you. These things are delicate and not that easy to sort out. That's why I don't have any secrets to share, Kayama said, trying to comfort the brunette. So how come you have so many guys fawning after you? Well, to be honest, it is mostly my looks. I am well aware I can be alluring with my body, and I'll totally use it to my advantage when the time asks for it. But this is not the kind of seduction you're after, are you? She simply couldn't picture Hado dragging boys into a love trap just to break their poor, young hearts when their expectations were not met. Now that you said it, I guess not. This is pretty confusing. I was never rejected before. Rejected? How come? I asked if we could go on a date, and he said no. Usually, I'm the one who declines because I know the boys and girls that asked me really wanted to be serious, as Mirio said once. But now that I'm the one asking, I don't know exactly what I want. Kayama smiled softly. It seems Hado was going through her first love experience. If you already asked them out and you two work so well, you probably know this person, right? Hi. And now you want to know him better. Why is that so? She wanted Hado to realize on her own how she really felt. Kayama was just giving her a push in the right direction. He's very fun to be around, being all flustered at times, but he's very reliable and an awesome hero. I know how he is when he's on duty, but I'm curious about how he is when he's not being a hero. Also, he looks so cute. And you want to seduce him so he gets closer to you and opens up. That's your plan. Yeah. I mean, it was until now, but I'm not sure anymore. Hahaha, don't worry, it will become clear soon enough. The way I see it, what you really want is to get closer to him, right? Hado nodded. Well, there's no true secret for making a guy fall in love with you, she said, getting up and walking outside the teacher's room with the young lady by her side. Kayama continued. Sure, your looks help, but it has to come with a good measure of your personality, lest you want to be a plain pretty face. So what do I do? Asking directly doesn't seem to get through to him, probably because he's nervous about it and too self-conscious. You have to make him comfortable around you. Then he'll want to spend more time with you, and then you can use all your charm. My charm, Hado said to herself, trying to figure out what it was for her. Here's a tip, you have 1,000 suns smile, make use of it. Oh, and try thinking about why exactly do you want to know him better and spend more time with him. With that said, Kayama dismissed the blue-haired girl, having a good feeling of warmth and mission accomplished in her chest. It wasn't exactly pertinent to the hero work of her students, but it was just as good since she was helping them grow in their personalities. At the 1B dorms, the building was quieter than usual. Just like with 1A, most of them were out in their hero work studies. Surely Monoma would say something comparing both classes in any way possible, if he was around, that is. Right now it was practically just Hanuki in the common room, switching through the TV channels. One day of slacking off wouldn't kill, right? Unfortunately, until now there wasn't anything in particular that caught his attention, probably due to the hour of the day. The middle of the afternoon was quite uneventful, unless you tuned in to some news channel. And the young man mindlessly flicked through the channels. A short blondie passed behind him, minding her own business. Tsunatori was heading to the kitchen to grab some apples, but then she caught a glimpse of something on the screen, something with a familiar shade of green. Her brain barely registered, but then she did a double take, just in time to confirm before Hanuki skipped to the next channel. The shorty jumped over the back of the couch, balancing on it as she stretched, and took the remote from his hand, much to the boy's surprise. Oi, everything okay, Tsunatori? He asked, astonished and mildly concerned. The girl with horns didn't answer, staring intensely at the TV, and when she flicked back to the previous channel, there it was. Rather, there he was. Before Hanuki could even ask why she did that, Tsunatori rushed upstairs, shouting along the way. Komori-chan, Izuku is on the news. Hanuki only caught the part where she said Midoriya's name. Looking back at the screen, the images showed an aerial take of him and Hado-senpai, both facing a tall guy with large arms, upper chest, and a comically square jawline. According to the texts rolling at the bottom, the criminal was convicted for multiple ATM thefts. Hasty footsteps sounded from upstairs, and before Hanuki could notice, he had already been kind of kicked out to the corner of the couch as Tsunatori charged and sat right in front of the TV, followed by Komori and Ibara. The Vine girl snatched the remote from his hand with her hair and raised the volume, then proceeded to nest with the other two like a tiny flock of birds, giggling like kids excited to watch their favorite anime. At the actual location, a couple of minutes ago. So far, Deku and Nejire-chan prevented the situation from escalating too much. Good thing this guy decided to steal the ATM when they were passing by. Their quick reaction time allowed Deku to take the nearby civilians to a safer place while Nejire-chan knocked the thief to somewhere more open. Now, normally when she sent someone under 3 meters flying like this with her waves, they were knocked out for good, or at least dizzy. This fella, however, looked like he could take some hits. Mind you, when the news informed of his streak of crimes, they were quite literal, as he used his large hands and arms to yank the atoms from the concrete base or wherever they were attached to. "What do you think, Deku-kun?" Nejire-chan asked him in a low voice as they held a defensive stance. It looks like some form of strength enhancement. I've dealt with someone like this before, but I don't know if this dude matches the other. Deku gave his first analysis. This thug reminded him of Muscular, but the fibers were not all exposed, and the increased mass was way more pronounced in the upper body, forcing the dude to lean forward a little. I sent him flying with my waves, but he didn't seem phased out. Shock absorption, maybe? Maybe, but he tore the ATM from the wall before you hit him. Even if it was some sort of stockpiling, where did that initial strength come from? Oi, how long do you plan to whisper over there? Get out of my way already, the dude shouted, making some of the onlookers take a step back in fear. Well, we didn't surround you yet, Mr. Gorilla, so you could have run away already. Nejire-chan casually explained, proceeding to float to the other side. The villain seemed quite troubled that she pointed it out. PCH, why you'll never catch me alive, you hear me? I'm not going to prison, so you'll have to kill me if you want me to stop, he said, smashing a big fist on the floor. We'd rather not come to that point, right, Deku-kun, she said, poking her head to the side so she could look at Deku and wave a hand, her smile never leaving her face. Hi, surrender now and just come with us peacefully. Deku agreed, holding his defensive stance, eyes focused on the large guy. I already said, I'm not going to prison today, so you better hurry up and kill me or else someone will get hurt. As the villain said that, he held the ATM that was under his arm in his right hand, bringing it back and taking aim. The target, the green teen in front of him. With puffed cheeks, he tossed it at a surprising speed. If it wasn't for Deku's enhanced dexterity, he would be in trouble. However, the strength was so much that the machine kicked off the ground, flying towards the onlookers who insisted on being nearby to film with their smartphones. That's bad. Deku had to focus quickly, spinning mid-air and launching the black whip with one hand while he used the other to anchor himself at the nearest object, a lamp post. He managed to stop the deadly object a couple of centimeters from the crowd. Everyone, please step back. This place is too dangerous. That seemed to knock some sense of self-preservation into their heads because they gradually turned around to flee the location. Meanwhile, Nejire-chan sprung into action, ready to knock the villain out for good this time, but she missed her next attack as the criminal used his powerful arms to hit the floor and jump, evading Nejire-chan. That was only possible because of those disproportionately large arms. A little surprised that she missed, even more, a large target like this, the brunette reacted 1 or 2 seconds slower than usual, turning around to face the villain yet again, and she would have been hit with a signpost if it wasn't for a green bolt pushing her out of the way. Wow, that was a close one. Thanks, Deku-kun. No problem. Let's circle him again, senpai, he said, quickly making his way around the large villain. This time Deku was blocking the escape route, one arm raised and 2 fingers held behind his thumb. If Nejire-chan didn't manage to knock him out with the usual shockwave, then he had to increase his output too. Maybe we'll need Ryukyu here to pin this guy down. Or I could try knocking his lights out. But if he's as resistant as Muscular, I'll have to go overboard. Cut that thought out, Izuku. Use your brain before using your arms, remember? Nana's voice sounded inside his head. Now that he was used to it, her presence was kinder relaxing and helped him focus at times. When she wasn't actively teasing him, that is. The villain's eyes darted left and right, from Deku to Nejire-chan. The civilians were all gone now, and a news helicopter surveyed the area. TCH, this was not part of the plan, the large guy grunted. Plan? Does he have help? We didn't see anything suspicious yet, but he could be stalling for reinforcements. No use in worrying about that if you don't solve the problem at hand. Now focus on the tall, broad, and ugly in front of you. Hi. This stalemate didn't drag for much longer as the criminal made his move, deciding that attacking Deku would be the best course of action. He easily tore a fire hydrant from the sidewalk and threw it at the green teen. Deku was forced to dodge as expected, and the large villain took the opportunity to slam his hands on the floor again and launch himself, but not before being struck on his side by a powerful blast of compressed air. "You will not escape," Deku shouted, rolling as he landed and dashing after the villain. Once again, the blow didn't seem to harm him, only send him flying. Instead of running, the criminal used his large arms to gain distance from the two heroes in training, akin to a gorilla. Deku could easily catch up to him with his full cowl, but Nejire-chan couldn't fly as fast, so he had to take that into consideration. "Nejire-chan, hold on to me." "Got it." The blue net latched onto his backs, legs locked around his waist and hands holding firmly on his shoulders. Green sparks flew from his body and Deku gave chase. It didn't take that long to catch up with the thief since it was pretty hard to miss such a disproportionate figure from sight. Still, he wasn't moving with the same freedom as usual. Regardless, once they got a clear line, Deku dashed forward, twisting his body to deliver a strong kick and halt the villain in his tracks. Psst. Louis smash. The villain was sent flying again, skidding on his feet to a halt. He managed to raise his arms at the last second to block the hit. They were facing each other again and Nejire-chan jumped from her place on Deku's back. This time they had him against a narrow alley. No way he would go through there with all that extra muscle mass. Speaking of which, Deku-kun, did you notice the size of his arms? They look quite dangerous, but I'm taking that into account. No, not that. Every time he makes those leaps, or when he is going to attack, it almost looks like his arms grow. Weird, isn't it? Nejire-chan explained. You're right. Probably it has to do with his strength enhancement. I noticed something too, Izuku. Look at him now. Doesn't it seem that he is holding his breath? Nana added, and some gears started to turn inside his mind. Ah, let it. I'll do this my own way then, the villain shouted, once again using his arms to move in a leap. This time he launched himself at Deku and Nejire-chan, making a small crater between them as he hit the floor with both hands turned into fists. As the two teens scattered, the villain went after Deku, throwing punch after punch with frightening speed. What's up with this guy? With that increase in mass, he shouldn't move that fast, even with enhanced strength. It's as if he didn't have any weight. Something wasn't adding up. At this point, the criminal had his arms sized to muscular, but he was moving at least twice as fast. The punches kept coming after him, but Deku could evade them rather easily. Get down, Deku-kun. Nejire-chan snuck up behind the tall villain, hitting him with a point-blank gring wave. Once again, the villain was sent flying, hitting the street and rolling a couple of meters. Whoops! I think that was too much. Nejire knew she had to increase her energy output since that guy tanked her hits already, but perhaps the attack that took down someone with a giantification quirk was overkill. Not yet, look, Deku pointed where the thief landed and he was getting up, apparently dizzy and holding his head. His arms were back to normal size. EA? How come? This wasn't a light hit at all. Perhaps there's a component to shock absorption. But what Hado-senpai said before. Huh? What? About the increase of mass. I think I have an idea. The blue net looked curiously at Deku as he kicked into analytic mode. As for the villain, he was already back on his feet. The news helicopter surveyed the area, catching his attention. That's bad. This wasn't part of the plan. I'll have to improvise then. His arms enlarged again, and he easily yanked a lamppost from the floor, aiming it like a spear at the helicopter above. Sorry about that. You didn't ask if I wanted to appear on television. Stop! Deku reacted as fast as he could, charging one for all to the highest percentage he could handle and letting out a powerful blast of compressed air that hit the villain square in the abdomen. The villain, caught off guard, staggered a little, holding his sides as he gasped for air. His arms seemed to deflate like balloons, and he gasped for air. Gasped, shit, you son of a bitch, that was dangerous. But before he could let loose another profanity, Deku and Nejire already covered the distance between them. Nejire-chan, don't let him hold his breath. Got it. She was ready to hit him with another wave, but the villain quickly inhaled air and his arms enlarged again, taking a defensive stance. However, he didn't see Deku approaching by a blind spot, crouching and hitting a solid punch to his guts, literally knocking the air out of the tall criminal. Without the shielding, Nejire-chan easily made him drop, hitting with 2 weak waves on the sides of his skull for extra impact. Another incident closed by the young duo of heroes. At the dorms, the 3 girls watching the entire thing were cheering and shouting like it was the finals of the Super Bowl. Well, Tsunatori was anyway. Good job for us, Deku-kun. Another mission complete, right? Hato said, raising her hand for a high five. Yeah, I feel like we're getting much better at this, senpai. Usually, Midoriya would feel mildly embarrassed or self-conscious when receiving a compliment, but this felt really right. They did a pretty good job, with minimal damage and no casualties. Yes, I can attest to that. In fact, I wonder if I even need to keep an eye on you too. Arriving at the location, the dragon hero transformed from her dragon form and came to check on the 2 teens under her tutoring. Your teamwork is improving, and in a relatively short time span. Not everyone can do this. Rukiyu complimented them, as if listening to her words, and in a sense of irony, Maruko also arrived at the scene. Yo, I heard you two were dealing with a big one this time. The dark-skinned woman approached the group, wrapping one arm around the boy's neck. You two are getting pretty busy lately, huh? She said with a wide grin on her face. We had an incident almost every day, sometimes more than one, the green teen recalled. Well, it's not like we don't have spikes in criminal activity now and then, especially the ones of smaller scale like this one, said Rukiyu. Having the 2 students with her allowed the dragon hero to focus on bigger problems that she was better suited for. I wonder why. It's like they're asking for jail time. Hato added her thoughts on that, and as she did so, the police were halfway through tossing the villain in the back of the truck. He was still pretty disoriented, but aware enough to put up a weak struggle. That's not fair. Hey, do you hear me, heroes? The 4 of them turned to the source of noise, as well as the citizens that returned to the streets. Your time will come, and you'll have to pay for using your quirks however you like. Just wait for it. The dude was silenced with a mask that also restricted how much air he could breathe in and was pushed inside the truck. This wasn't something as unusual as you may think, as a lot of these lowly criminals were more talk than action, but there was something unsettling in the way he phrased it. Not to mention, it was as if every villain arrested these 2 weeks had something to say. Maruko rolled her eyes in annoyance and the 2 teens didn't think much of it, but Rukiyu had a bad feeling about this. This one has a quirk called piston muscle. Basically fills the muscles with air and increases strength, but he has to hold his breath most of the time. The police said this is his 4th time being arrested, but the incident list goes way longer. Ah, so that's why he went flying and moved so fast, the brunette concluded. Well, whatever. Hey, Deku, come patrol with me now. I'm going to show you how to properly move around. Maruko did less of an offer and more of a demand, as she was already dragging the surprised green teen with her by his neck. She also got fond of poking his sides while doing it recently, much to his embarrassment, but a lesson from a hero like Maruko wasn't one he could pass. That's why Rukiyu intervened, holding his wrist and softly prying him from the rabbit hero. Actually, I think it would be more productive if you focused more on your secondary quirk ability. You can do that while patrolling with me, she said, glaring briefly at the dark-skinned woman. Nah, you can train that at your school. Learning from me is an opportunity you don't have that often, Maruko said, pulling him to her side. His second ability is at a more critical point, so he should focus on that instead. Rukiyu insisted, this time being a little rougher in releasing Midoriya from Maruko's arms. What's going on here? Midoriya said to himself. Of all things that could happen today, he didn't expect to be used as a tug-of-war by 2 pro-heroes. And honestly, he couldn't decide for himself. Both options were pretty interesting. I wonder why Fufu Nana's voice sounded in his head, but Midoriya was too busy being lost to question her about it. Before this could escalate into an open fight between the bunny and the dragon, Midoriya got pushed away from both of them. None other than Hado simply walked between them and dragged Midoriya with her, without a care in the world. "We'll keep patrolling the area and you two can train after that, okay? See you later, Rukyu-senpai Maruko-senpai," Hado said, waving a hand at them and with the brightest smile adorning her face. Meanwhile, Midoriya looked even more lost than before. Mind you that she firmly hugged his arm the entire time. Such was the boldness of the move, Rukyu and Maruko froze for a moment, watching as the duo walked away with hasty steps. "Phew, that was close," Hado said, slowing down as they turned a corner and got out of their line of sight. Letting out a small sigh, she let go of his arm and resumed her walk, being followed by Midoriya shortly after. "Senpai, what was that?" he asked the brunette, confused. You were doing that face again," she answered shortly. "What face? Do I make a face?" "Yeah, that face you do when you're getting nervous. Like when I get too close like this," she said, taking over his entire field of vision with her bright blue eyes. "See?" Midoriya leaned back, but it wasn't really needed because Nejair kept on walking. "You looked like you needed a little help there, so I just did it." Oh, I see." Midoriya took some hasty steps to catch up with her, and they walked down the streets in silence, vigilant eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of problems. "Ni Deku-kun." I'm sorry." He perked up at this. "Eh? For what, senpai?" "You know, for being overwhelming all the time and making you uncomfortable. Normally I would say it can't be helped, but it must be a real drag for you to have me around, so sorry for being annoying." "What? No, I don't think you're annoying, senpai. I mean, I do get a little uncomfortable at times, but that's more a me issue," he said, scratching his neck sheepishly. Midoriya was making progress for sure, but his social skills didn't advance as fast as his physical ones. He still felt anxious whenever he entered a new environment or met new people. It wasn't as crippling as in the beginning, but still presented an obstacle to overcome. "Haha, you always do this, dragging the problems all to yourself. I'm trying to be nice here, you know." "Sorry." "No, I'm the one that should feel sorry. Mirio and Tamaki always tell me that I shouldn't be so straight to the point when talking to others. I don't want this work to be a pain to you." "It's not, senpai, I can assure you that. If nothing, you being this upfront somehow helps me to open up. I really admire your positive attitude." "Really? You don't think I'm too nosy or anything," she said, turning to face him while walking backward. She was clearly excited about this news. "Well, maybe a little bit too curious, but even then, I like this about you, Hado-senpai. You're always full of energy and, how can I say, it's like some of it gets to me. Does that make sense?" "Yes," she said, beaming a smile that dared outshine the sun. "I'm glad we're good. Let's keep working together and getting along well, Deku-kun. Let's do it." They exchanged warm smiles. Even if being a pro-hero was a serious business, it didn't mean they couldn't make a good time out of it, especially if they wanted to make people more at ease around them. It was like Hado said before, Midoriya could look really tense at times, and this could make those looking feel worried. So not only was Midoriya learning from two pros from the top 10, but he was also learning with her how to ease up, even if only a little. Perhaps he should allow her to enter his personal space more often, bit by bit. If he could survive Nejair-chan without turning into a stuttering mess, then he could take on any social situations head-on. "Your phone is here. Your phone is here. Your phone is here." The green teen died a little inside as he forgot to put his phone on silent mode. The duo froze in their tracks as Hado stared at him with curious, expectant eyes, tilting her head and placing a finger on her cheek. Meanwhile, Midoriya slowly retrieved his phone from the secure pocket in his costume, not daring to turn his eyes to the side. He knew she was looking at him, which only mortified him even more. He tried to answer as collected as possible. Midoriya here." "Ah, it's you," sounded an unknown voice from the other side of the line. It was rather raspy and tired, like someone who hasn't slept well in a couple of days. Midoriya instinctively looked at the caller ID, and to his surprise, it showed May's phone number. He tensed up immediately. Who is that? What do you want, and where's May? He immediately realized this wasn't the best course of action, as he must have sounded pretty distressed, so Midoriya tried to backpedal a little, using a more relaxed tone. This is Hatsume's number. The voice on the other end of the line let out a light laugh. She's still in her room, and hasn't left for 2 days now. Is she all right? All right as in breathing and eating? Sure thing, but Hatsume is never all right in the head, you know. That released the tension in his body, coming out as a huge, relieved sigh. Then what is the problem, and with no offense, why do you have her phone? Midoriya was more intrigued than worried now. Right, how do I tell you this? Look, can you do something about your girlfriend, please? Look, I know the hero work studies are a huge deal to you guys from the hero course. Trust me, the senpais from the 3rd year get hit with a ton of requests for modifications in support gear, but can't you spare like 30 minutes to come here and, I don't know, talk to her or something? What exactly is happening? Ooh, sorry, I didn't get your name. Yeah, just call me Mokairo. Anyway, Hatsume usually does her crazy stuff at the development studio, but now that she's locked here for a whole month, the girl is really trying to blow the entire building, I swear. Midoriya deadpanned, seeing where this was going. And why exactly did you call me? You're her boyfriend, aren't you? Well, not exactly. Hold up, you don't know. Know what? About you two? I mean, she never said anything, but it is pretty obvious, at least to me. And you know why exactly Hatsume-san is under house arrest? For messing with school equipment and blowing stuff up. What else would she get grounded for? So they didn't know about, well, everything. Perhaps Power Loader didn't tell them the whole story, or maybe her classmates simply didn't ask, as Hatsume getting in trouble was kind of the norm over there. But then that begged the question. If they didn't know about the whole harem thing, why would they assume he was dating Hatsume? Did she tell you guys we were dating? What? Haha, no. All she talks about are her babies and stuff. I'm telling you, she's going to marry a machine man one day. Well, I used to joke about it, but then came you. Me? Yeah, you. Ever since you two started dating or whatever, Hatsume has been taking regular baths, sometimes more than once a day. She stopped skipping meals, working overnight on her babies, to which our sleep schedule thanks you a lot. Damn, she's even following the safety protocols for testing. Most of the time. Whatever you did, my dude, it has changed her a lot. Oh, that's a surprise. I know, right? At first, we didn't understand why. It's not like Power Loader Sensei's lectures changed a thing before. But then, one of our classmates saw her rushing around with a set of gloves and then saw Hatsume handing them to you. Given how she doesn't usually spend that much time making sure something won't explode and how she kept hanging around you, we all concluded you two were dating. Oh, I see. I didn't know she changed that much. Still, why do you have her phone, Mokairo-san? Because that crazy pink head is losing her brilliant mind here. It took a while because she was still tinkering in her room, but now she ran out of pieces and Sensei told us to not bring her any spare parts. So basically Hatsume has nothing to build nor do, and this is driving her insane, which will inevitably drive us insane too. Don't you think insane is a bit too much? It's been half of the time already. She's talking non-stop about servos and lightweight alloys, regardless of whatever we're doing, all day. Okay? And I saw her glare at the AC the other day. Please come here and do something. It's too cold to risk her busting it. But what should I do? I don't know, whatever you guys do when you are together. You know, boyfriend and girlfriend stuff. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen so soon. I'm afraid I can't drop by anytime soon. Ugh, at least call her or something. Like those 3-hour calls that couples make. I'm begging you, dude. Ah ha ha, I'll try. But if you don't mind me asking, how are you calling me from her phone? Oh, this? I specialize in programming. Cracking phone locks is kids' play. It's not that hard, really. Hatsum is the type that uses those dumb passwords like the name of her pets or something like that. It is your name, by the way. Snort Izuku babe. So Class 1H wasn't aware of his harem. In hindsight, it sort of made sense, since Hatsum sort of hogged all the attention to her when it came to supporting gear. Despite the tendency to catastrophic failure of her inventions, everyone agreed she was one of the best in that matter. All right, I'll try keeping in contact. I admit I didn't have a lot of free time to talk to her, he admitted in shame. At the dorms, he still got to hang around with the girls on separate occasions when their schedules allowed. With 1B, they kept on texting him at night, so there was that. But with Hatsum, she wasn't one to call him that often, almost only when she had something to show him. It could be a new baby or something else. It wasn't that surprising, considering how invested she was with her projects. As Mukairo said, she would easily skip meals and proper rest whenever she got in the zone with some new idea. Thanks, man. You're saving our lives here. I'll try to make sure she has her phone on her at all times so you can call whenever you want. This time it was tossed on the couch. Sigh good luck with her. And the call was over. It went from a concerning surprise to a pretty innocuous one. For a moment, Midoriya felt like he was in big trouble, rather Hatsum was. Well, now that this was over, he could resume his scouting with Hado-senpai. She was still staring at him with a wide smile across her lips, blue eyes twinkling with excitement and curiosity. However, Hado wasn't as close to him as usual. In fact, it kinda looked like she was restraining herself. Was she trying to give him some space? She did say she would try to be more considerate of his social awkwardness, but he didn't expect that to happen so fast. Deciding to go in the same spirit, Midoriya moved a little out of his shell. This time he invited her to barrage him with questions. Senpai, do you have something you want to ask? If her face lit up any more, it would probably blind him. Nee, who was this person on the phone? What did it say? You said something about dating. Was that Kendo-chan? Why the house arrest? Did someone piss off Aizawa-sensei again? Are you dating someone else now? That Hatsum person, it is Hatsum-san from the support course, isn't it? Did she make all of your gear? Did you break up with Kendo-chan? Are you and Hatsum-chan dating now? Do you want to play some games with me later on? Are you dating someone? Needless to say, Midoriya had to struggle a little with his own nature right now, but as his brain processed the storm of questions, something caught his attention. Wait, did you just ask if I want to play games with you? He asked, incredulously.
Yeah.
Tamaki has a lot, and he doesn't mind sharing them. Ooh, right, but why ask me exactly? I thought it would be fun. Don't you like playing games? She questioned, tilting her head in confusion. Oh, no, I do like to play, especially the All Might titles. It's just that, how do I put it? It sort of came out of nowhere. Well, I was thinking about it, and you always seem tense around me, so I wonder if we do something together that's not work, we could get more used to being around each other. What do you think? She had wide, sparkling eyes filled with anticipation, waiting for his response. If he had to be honest, Midoriya would avoid being anywhere closer to her, or any other girl, for that matter. He wasn't superstitious or anything, but the idea that he had a natural charm or something of the likes was starting to become less of a fantasy and more like an accurate depiction of his reality. However, what Hado said did make some sense. He did feel tense around her. For this matter, and for other things like the usual pressure to make progress at all times. For the better or worse, the hero work study was consuming his attention. The fact that he forgot about Hatsum solidified the idea in his mind. So in light of the active efforts Nejire was making to not trigger his usual awkward responses, perhaps he had to wind up a bit too. Plus, he also had the ruse of Kendo being his girlfriend, so this should be enough to not give Hado the wrong impression.
I don't know about that, Tiger. Najire-chan looked really interested in knowing if you were dating.
It's okay, Nana-san. She already gave up on the idea when Tsunatori basically yelled to everyone present that I was Kendo's boyfriend, remember? Yeah, right, and she's inquiring you repeatedly about that because she's just curious. Besides, I can't just tiptoe around her, it would be kinder rude. All right, if you say so. But I want to remind you, my sweet little boy, that you have precedents on this. A lot of them. And I swear if you even try to repeat what you did to Pony, I'm going to find a way to physically smack you. I already apologized to her, and this is different. Hado-senpai is only curious about me, that's all. She's like that with literally everyone. Sure thing, precious. Just try to be a little more conscious about it. About what? About the effect that you have on women. Before her voice faded out into the back of his mind, Midoriya felt a chill run down his spine with the ghostly sensation of a hand gently raising his chin and cupping his cheeks. Had it been real, he would expect a deep, long kiss on his lips to follow that motion. So, did you have enough time to think? Hado was still waiting for his answer. She apparently accepted that zoning out like that was a common thing to Midoriya. Well, about that, I'm kind of unavailable for a while. Oh, really? What happened? I am under house arrest too. Awa, Hado drooped like a wilting flower, but got back to her normal hype self in a heartbeat. So how about when you're off the house arrest? I guess so. I'll probably have a lot of lessons to catch up on, and I can help on that too. It may not seem like it, but I'm pretty good with this school stuff, you know. Well, when you put it that way, I guess once in a while it wouldn't hurt. Really? Yay! Despite the usual lack of direct contact with the girls recently, he expected them to become angrier or something, but they were actually pretty happy, considering their situation. Sure, no fun time was a bummer, to put it lightly, but the girls were now allowed to publicly show their affection for him. No more need to sneak around to plant kisses on his cheeks or hug him. No need to fake when they were staring at him when he was working out. They could tell anyone now that they loved him. Well, not everyone, actually. They didn't spread the word to the entire school, but it was already pretty liberating that their classmates knew about it. Gossip was inevitable, but at that point why bother? That's why the girls looked happier recently, despite the house arrest and ban on their former love nest. So Midoriya imagined casually hanging out with Hado-senpai, who wasn't into him, wouldn't make them mad or anything. So the giggling girl spun on her heels again and resumed walking ahead again, quickly followed by him. It felt nice for him to do something normal for once since they didn't have that many opportunities. As for the brunette, a warm fuzzy feeling was bubbling inside her chest. Her yellow eyes ran through the documents on the desk. Her sharp nails tapped on the wood in a rhythmic repetition as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Late at night, Rukiyu decided to stay for a while longer to check on something she noticed. The increase in small crimes during the past weeks. The numbers normally fluctuated based on bigger events like gang fights and the heroes dismantling some groups, but this was an unusual steady increase in numbers. Small thefts like purses and phones, assaults on convenience stores and small banks. The boldest move yet was the ATM attempt today. All cases were dealt with swiftly and without casualties. It really wasn't that hard with Maruko, Nejire-chan, and Deku helping her, but something felt off to the dragon hero. It was like they were asking to be locked up. Perhaps it was a side effect of the fight with the high-end Naomu. Or maybe the vacuum left by the shy Hasakai was finally creating ripples. Regardless, there was an increase, and she didn't like how ordered it was, both in frequency and severity of cases. Rukiyu was staring at these papers for an hour and a half now, and nothing came out of it. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. Perhaps she was overthinking it. Perhaps Maruko was right for once in her opinions and Tatsuma was trying to read into something that simply wasn't there. Small fish criminals are simple to understand, they all want the same things. It wasn't anything important. Yet. Sigh, what is this feeling? She said, looking up at the ceiling. Ever since she got young Midoriya under her wing, she has been feeling something different about him, something that she instinctively tried to push back, repress. But what was it then? Yes, he was talented, and yes, she saw a lot of potential in him, but that weird feeling kept there in the back of her head. It was slightly different from the usual wish to protect kids she usually felt. I mean, she did want to protect him, but it was like this wish came from a different place. Not completely, but it was there. The dragon hero frowned, still staring at the ceiling. It can't be because of Kayama and him, can it? She promised to keep it a secret for her friend, and honestly, Tatsuma tried to erase that spicy piece of knowledge from her memory altogether, but she never made up her mind over the topic, which also brought up its own set of problems. Should she spend that much time thinking about it to begin with? Wasn't the answer pretty obvious? She supposed so, but then why the doubts? Perhaps Tatsuma should question Midoriya about it and hear his side of the story. As far as she was concerned, Midnight wouldn't cross the line and force him into a relationship if he didn't want to. The dragon lady knew better than to take her friend's dominant persona for anything but what it was, just an act. Sigh, why should I even bother? It's none of my business and not at all related to the work study, she murmured, running her fingers through her blonde strands. It was easy for her to go overboard sometimes. A minor downside of having the power to transform into a dragon was having the personality traits of one. It wasn't a strong influence like what you see in mutant-type quirks, but it was there. In her kid days, sometimes she would feel an impulse to hoard things she liked, be it plushies or her favorite toy at the playground. It wasn't that hard to suppress the feeling, and she eventually grew out of it. But the reason why she was thinking about it now was exactly the similarities. How she felt back then, and how she was feeling now. It wasn't that different, at least as far as her memories went. Much akin to many fantasy stories, it was as if something awakened inside her, like an ancient dragon being disturbed from its slumber. Her young self would joke about it, taking the role of a mighty and proud dragon, full of greed and with an unwavering desire to protect its hoard at all costs. The blondie entertained the thought a little further. What was it that she desired to protect now? Shaking her head, and with a soft smile on her lips, Rukiu returned to the reports in front of her. It wasn't like the answer would jump in front of her, so she might as well call it a day and take some rest. Perhaps Centipter could make some sense of this, considering he had more experience with this kind of stuff. As for the weirdly nostalgic feeling in her chest, she decided to not make too much out of it. It went away back then, it would go away again now, no worries. She should be more concerned about making the most of this period she had with the two heroes in training. The goal here was to give them experience, so Rukiu wanted to make sure they've learned as much as possible from her. Maybe we could take a day to focus on his secondary quirk ability, she thought out loud as she closed the office. It has been a long time since she last trained with someone. It should amount to an interesting experience. Ahem, the skeletal figure cleared his throat. There wasn't a smooth way to approach this topic, was it? So, you've built yourself a harem, young man. Midoriya couldn't bring himself to look directly at All Might right now, such was his embarrassment. He nodded in silence. Tashinori took a deep breath in. Principal Nezu's Beginner's Guide to Teaching didn't cover this kind of topic, and years of being a pro hero didn't help either. Did you make sure to use protection? Yes, most of the time. You could feel the tension in the air. Do they know about? No, I didn't tell them yet. Yet? The scrawny man raised an eyebrow, while the green teen flinched. I was thinking of how to break it to them that I am. Should I keep it a secret? Midoriya finally raised his head to look his mentor in the eye. This was the face of someone deeply in conflict, which told Tashinori this was more than simply a group of girls lusting after him. You should know by now what the risks of doing such a thing are. I'm not telling you not to, but you have to be aware that this could be a potential danger to everyone involved. One for All has been kept as a secret ever since it was formed, and for good reason. While it is an amazing quirk, it is also very dangerous. I understand that, but I don't like lying to them like this. In a way, Midoriya took the weight of this responsibility all to himself. It was his burden to carry, and he couldn't afford to let others take risks at his expense. However, Toshinori sort of understood what was going through the mind of this young man. Tell me, young Midoriya, are you really in love with all of them? Or is it simply a pursuit of desire? What? No, I really love them. I know it sounds weird, considering the sheer numbers, but that's absolutely the truth. The blond man took a moment to reflect upon this. It didn't look like Midoriya was simply doing that for the casual sec. Honestly, even if it was the case, he couldn't see that happening in the way it did. There had to be a common factor, something that made all of these girls gravitate around him and not leave. Speaking of which, how many? Midoriya scratched his head sheepishly. 16. Ahem, you sure have been busy, my young man. I have to admit, I couldn't see myself in your situation. I'm not trying to set a record if that's what you're thinking. I didn't say that. I'll assume you and these girls had been doing that for a while now. It didn't happen all of a sudden, right? Yeah, it's like, one by one, they all came around me and we, did that. Well, I would be lying if I said one for all didn't make me popular. Oh yeah, I think you mentioned that before. A wide grin appeared on Toshinori's face. What can I say? It might not be the most heroic use, but one for all does increase your stamina and endurance. And the culture in the United States is quite different from here. Midoriya decided it was best not to delve much further into it. Regardless, I want you to understand the implications, young Midoriya. Even if you weren't the inheritor of One for All, this is still as far from a typical relationship as it can get. Legal issues aside, I am almost sure a huge crowd wouldn't readily agree with this, and it could be damaging to yours and their images. I know that. I've been thinking about it too, and I can't give you an answer all might, Midoriya said in a sad tone. Then his eyes shone with determination. But I'll make it work as somehow. I don't really care about what others might say. My feelings will not change. Maybe we'll have to keep it a secret to the public in the end, but I definitely want to marry all of my girlfriends and make them happy for the rest of our lives. The young man looked dead set on his decision. That much was clear to Toshinori. While it was definitely an unconventional way of leading his life, to say the least, he could support him in doing what he felt was right. And if the girls all agreed to do the same, there wasn't much to argue here. Aside from the moral angle, that is. Well, as long as you understand the consequences, I don't personally agree with this kind of stuff, but it is your life. Do what you must, but try to take care, okay? Hi! It put Midoriya a little more at ease as he heard these words from his mentor. All Might didn't commend Midoriya for getting himself in the center of a harem, but at least he was there to encourage him. Sort of. Still, it puzzles me how you managed to achieve such a thing, the scrawny man thought out loud. Meanwhile, inside Midoriya's mind. Say it. No. Come on, say it. No, Nana-san. It will be fun. Don't you want to see Toshi drop his jaw at that smug remark? I'm not going to tell All Might all the girls love my little Deku, Nana-san. Awa, you look so cute when you're embarrassed, she said, and Midoriya could feel her pinching his cheeks. The ones in the face and the other ones too. Well, I'm kind of lost too, but I suppose they like my cute face, and my body shape, and my personality, and my awkwardness to an extent. I guess I have at least one thing that they like a lot. And I suppose your performance also factors into this, perhaps? Probably. He was really good at this. The girls told so, not him. Smooth as sandpaper, Yagi. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Are you going to tell him about, well, me? Nana asked the green teen, staring at the blonde, scrawny man through Midoriya's eyes. I almost forgot. But are you okay with this? What do you mean? Well, it's not like you can stop me. Plus, from what you've told me, All Might really admired you. so I don't know if he would like to know that you're kind of living inside my mind. Even if he doesn't like it, it won't change our situation. I'm still living rent-free in your mind, and technically I'm not the real Shimura Nana. I'm pretty sure Yagi will take this well. All Might, there's something else I wanted to say, Midoriya proceeded with caution, which prompted a similar reaction from Toshinori. What is it, young Midoriya? Well, you know how I can kind of see the previous hosts of One for All. Go on. Toshinori leaned forward, listening close to Midoriya's next words. One of the previous inheritors awakened. Awakened? What do you mean by that? Are you feeling ill? No, I'm completely fine. It's just, your mentor, Shimura Nana, is living in my head. Well, the bulk of the message was delivered because any other details were missed with that lack of subtlety. Do you mean, my mentor? Yeah. To put it shortly, her memories detached from One for All. She can mix things inside my mind and access memories, but everything else looks like her. Her voice, her looks. I thought that she thought that you should know All Might. Toshinori stood still for a while. His bright blue eyes seemed to dig deep into Midoriya's emerald green ones. Perhaps he didn't believe in him, or perhaps he was trying to see his mentor through those green pools. At last, he let out a tired sigh. Is that so? Toshinori leaned back on the couch, hands interlocked as he pondered. He sighed deeply and looked somewhat aggravated. Is there something wrong, All Might? No, not yet at least. He leaned forward, looking straight at Midoriya. I'll be honest, young man, this development is completely unexpected to me. The reason why I haven't been supervising your training as closely now is that I have been researching the past inheritors of One for All. The past inheritors? Correct. The quirk you awakened belonged to one of the persons before us. Neither I nor my mentor experienced such a thing, so I decided to look further into it. What you have just said reassures me that I must dig deeper. Then I want to help. Maybe if I look through the registers of heroes, we can find a pattern and... No. No? No. The blond man repeated. As of now, your priority is to master One for All and learn to control that second quirk. Leave the investigation to me. But I understood. It wasn't that hard to reason. Midoriya had other things to focus on. My mentor, huh? Toshinori said under his breath, then got up from the couch, and so did Midoriya. The blond man then rested a hand on his shoulder. One for All is a power much more mysterious than we imagined, young Midoriya. The green teen nodded in silence. Thank you for confiding this to me, young man. I never experienced this connection you have with One for All and the memories stored in it. It would be nice to say goodbye to my former master in a way. At least you're in good hands, more capable of teaching than I am. Toshinori said as he walked to the door with Midoriya by his side. She told me to say, you're a good mentor too, and I agree with her, he said, reassuring the scrawny man. Seeing the burning determination in those green eyes, Toshinori felt a wave of nostalgia, not only from when he began training Midoriya, but also from the time when he began his own training. Did his mentor see the same burning glow in his eyes? Well, he assumed yes, otherwise she wouldn't keep pushing him forward. Toshinori ought to do the same now. Well then, young Midoriya, keep on working to master One for All, make it yours, and try to learn from the other quirk at your disposal. Yes, I'll do my best, he said, stepping outside the room. Oh, and try not to woo any more ladies while you're at it, all right? He added before closing the door, but just in time to see the green teen turn into a tomato. Hi. Awa, you look so cute when you're embarrassed. I wish I could go outside and pinch those freckled cheeks for real, Nana said between her soft laughs. Give me a break, Nana-san. He understood why people made these assumptions, but he really wanted everyone to understand he didn't do that on purpose. Well, the falling in love part. Are you sure this is okay, Rukiyu-san? I don't want to slow you down, he asked. Rukiyu was scouting the area from the sky, and Deku was sitting on the back of the dragon hero. No problem at all. Sure, I can't fly as fast, but you're safe up there. Plus, this gives you a new perspective, doesn't it? As she said that, Deku looked down. It was a little scary to be above a couple of buildings, but it was also quite exciting. And she was right, it did feel different to observe and patrol from up here. It felt like nothing could escape his eyes, and he did spot something, a little commotion in an area packed with people near a mall. To your left, Rukyu-san. The dragon hero glanced in the direction and saw what he was pointing at. In a swift motion, her body twisted and they descended. Of course, since she wasn't used to carrying people around, Rukyu was a second or two too late to tell poor Deku to hold tight, but it wasn't really necessary. The moment she shifted her wings, the green teen held firmly around her neck. My bad. Hold tight, Deku. Why, yes. The gust of wind created by her wings served to warn the bystanders and have them out of the way as she landed. Deku jumped down as she turned to her human form, and they quickly went to the center of the commotion. Citizens stepped aside as the two heroes made their way through the crowd until they arrived at the center, where a man crouched on the floor. The man's clothes were pretty tattered and even burnt at some places, especially the trench coat he was using, but most importantly, the guy shivered and whined in what seemed to be great pain. He hugged his sides desperately, stretching the already battered clothes and threatening to tear them to shreds. Mister, what is going on? Do you need medical assistance? Rukyu took the lead, kneeling beside the poor, agonizing man. By now there was a small circle around them and Deku was politely telling people to give more space. Well, are you, a hero? He asked between grunts and clenched teeth. Yes, my name is Rukyu. How can I help you? Do you need me to take you to a hospital? She asked, concerned but still maintaining her voice level and calm. The man didn't answer right away. He trembled more as if he was restraining something, feet pushing the cement floor as he pressed his head further against it. His hands clutched his sides even more, and he contorted into a ball of pain. More grunts and a labored breath came. At this point, she wasn't sure if the man could even provide her with an answer, so it was time to take the initiative. But before she could tell Deku she was going to carry that man to the nearest hospital, he spoke. Rather, he laughed between painful grunts. Wheeze ha 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 ha, I see Ek, you're Rukyu. Yes, mister, can you tell me your name? She said and motioned to pick him from the floor, but as soon as her hand made contact, it felt hot. Unusually hot for a normal body temperature, enough to make her recoil as if it would burn her. Ha ha ha, perfect, I couldn't ask for HRRK, a better person, the 10th greatest hero of Japan, ha 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 ha. From the sideline, Deku noticed the weird unfolding of events. Something wasn't right. And here's the thing, from her angle, Rukyu couldn't see what was under the dude since he was pretty much curled into a ball. But Deku noticed something in his hand from where he was. The man slowly looked up, still pressing his head against the floor in increasing pain, staring at Rukyu. Both heroes saw a sick, twisted grin creep into his face, but only Deku saw him pull out something from underneath. He didn't know exactly why, but Deku felt. No, he knew it was a bad sign, and as such, his body acted before his mind. I couldn't ask for a better first kill. Suddenly, a jet stream of blood-red liquid shot up. It went up like a bullet, a deadly high-pressure liquid that was clearly at boiling point, and it would probably have burned Rukyu's face away if Deku didn't pull her away from the man. One fraction of a second later, and she would be feeling the searing hot liquid in her skin. That, of course, caused the nearby crowd to panic, standing in shock as they stared at the man and at the heroes. However, the problems were just beginning. Still looking a bit shocked from almost having her face removed, Rukyu looked up in the sky, eyes wide open. Deku had pulled her by the collar of her clothes, and only now was her brain processing the "watch out," he shouted. But her eyes caught an imminent danger. The same scalding liquid that she avoided was not coming back down and scattering. Everyone move. Rukyu transformed into her dragon form, using her tail to push people away as she increased in size. She would normally take the precautions to avoid transforming in crowded places, but the situation asked for it. But only part of the crowd was pushed, with people stumbling on whoever was behind them. So Rukiyu had no other option but to shield the remaining bystanders. Spreading her wings, the dragon hero covered them, and as she expected, she felt them burn the moment the hot liquid landed on them. Ag! She howled in pain. Her body was covered in tough scales, but her wings were considerably less resistant, due to their flexibility. Regardless, she endured the pain and kept shielding the civilians. "Hurry up and get to a safe place," she commanded the crowd, making sure to stand between them and the now revealed villain. "Rukiyu, how are your wings?" Deku got to her side, taking a defensive stance. Meanwhile, the villain slowly raised to his feet. He was staggering, visibly shaking, and his breath was labored. Nonetheless, the psychotic grin remained, even if his face showed signs of fatigue. Having tossed the old, ragged trench coat away, his right arm was exposed and had the thing that Deku spotted earlier, some type of glove or gauntlet with a single opening in the front. In the back, 2 tubes jutted out and sunk into the arm at many points, and the apparatus covered most of it all the way up to the shoulder. "Ha ha ha, ha ha, how noble of you! To think you would use your wings like an umbrella, ha 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 ha," the man said between shallow breaths. "Bastard, you put a lot of innocent people in danger," she shouted out of anger. She had to reroute some of the pain out. "So what? Ha ha ha, you saved them, didn't you? Ack!" the villain retorted, grabbing his chest in mild pain. Rukiyu let out a tiny growl. "I'll give you one chance to surrender peacefully. Take that thing from your arm and—" "Ha! Ha 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 ha!" the villain laughed hysterically. "Surrender? Come on, my blood isn't even boiling yet." And with that, the villain pulled out a vessel with a yellowish liquid and injected it on his neck. In a matter of seconds, the changes became apparent. The skin now had a red hue and his veins were all visible. Perhaps it was a side effect of the injection, but the painful look vanished from his face, giving place to complete psychosis. "Now, let's continue our game." The villain raised the gauntlet arm and pointed it at the 2 heroes. They immediately reacted and moved out of the way, but Rukiyu was considerably slower than Deku in her dragon form. If she didn't turn into her human form as she dodged, she would have been hit in the stomach by the scalding jet stream. And to make things even worse, this shot had a great range, probably due to the pressure, and it easily made its way to where the civilians were. "Damn it, Deku, we have to increase the perimeter. Move the people further back." "Got it." Activating full cowl, Deku quickly made it to where the red liquid hit the floor. This was the maximum range of that weapon, which meant they would have to keep this villain right where he was. "Everyone, please stay calm and leave the area. We can't risk having you in here now." The bystanders were still a little perplexed and quite curious to see the fight. With Rukiyu involved, a great show was guaranteed, and Deku himself was growing more known by proxy. So even though they followed the instructions, there were still groups watching the ongoing fight. "Awa, that's cute. The trainee is acting like a pro already. Let's see if he can handle the same heat, though." The villain aimed his arm again, and another jet was shot, targeted at Deku. But before he could react to it, Rukiyu entered in the way, transforming and blocking the shot with her metal claw. Even with the extra cover, she could feel her skin burning under her scales. "Arg! Rukiyu!" He suddenly turned back when he heard the cry of pain. "Stay there and increase the perimeter. I'll take care of this," she said, focusing on the villain in the middle of the street. Her draconic eyes glared at him, and her fangs showed as she growled. The palm of her right claw was stinging, but she could handle it for now. The worst pain came from her left wing, the one that got scalded previously. If needed, she should be able to still fly, focusing enough on ignoring the pain. More psychotic laughter came from the enemy in front of her. "Watch out, Miss 10th Place. I never said this was my maximum range, so if I was to, I don't know, point to the other side," he said, raising his arm back while still facing Rukiyu. "Things could get really heated for our audience, ha 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 ha." "That bastard, what do you plan to do?" Shoot aimlessly at innocent people, she said in almost a roar. No, believe it or not, I'm not that type of guy, the man said, lowering his weapon and running the other hand through his frail black hair. I'm here to kill heroes. Upon hearing this, she felt a couple of emotions swell inside her chest. Anger, worry, and a deep fear for the green-haired teen that stood behind her. This guy was after heroes, and judging from his last action, he wouldn't discriminate between her, someone from the top 10, and him, someone in training. The lowest type of scum. Kill heroes? That's right, didn't you know? The age of heroes is over, all might is gone, and if the best you pro-heroes can offer is that insane-ass endeavor, then we're as good as dead, ha 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 ha. So you don't think we're good enough? TCH, oh please, don't tell me you actually believe you're doing shit. Pro-heroes, you all are a bunch of bad jokes, all of you and the clowns that watch you and clap their hands. Justice? I call bullshit. You're not better than anyone, and I'll show you this by scalding those pretty scales off your dead body. Her senses were starting to get weird. At the same time that she was focused on him, everything else seemed to blur away. She could feel her hand and wings stinging more. Her enlarged heart was beating stronger, her breath was getting sharper. It was all kicking into overdrive, and she was getting tunneled vision. She could feel her muscles tense up in anticipation, her eyes shrunk into thin slits, and her tail hit the floor hard. I bet this will make a great show for the green bean behind you. She didn't get most of the graphic depiction the villain did of how he would flail her alive, but that last bit did register in her brain, and it worked like a trigger. Something clicked inside her, and then she moved. There wasn't much thought at it, she simply leaped forward. Her wings flapped to get more speed, and she simply dashed forward. Most people would be absolutely terrified of seeing a creature of her size coming at them with that much speed. But if it wasn't enough, the roar that she let out would definitely do the trick. Nevertheless, the villain kept his psychotic grin plastered on his face. You make that almost too easy. Slam! Rukiyu effortlessly smashed the villain on the floor. Had she applied more pressure under her claw, this guy would turn into the human equivalent of mashed potato, that was for sure. The reason why it didn't happen was that right before she hit him, the villain managed to shoot at her upcoming claw. Being this close to the source, Rukiyu felt a much greater heat and impact from the jet stream. Despite her semi-conscious state, her body reacted naturally and recoiled, just like one would do when touching a hot iron bar. The new level of pain also served to knock her back into her normal state of mind. Ow, arg! She couldn't help but squint her eyes shut as the pain coursed through her body. Do you think this is a good time to close your eyes? Saved by her instincts and trained reactions, the dragon hero jumped back from her position, but not fast enough to completely avoid the next scalding shot, which grazed her neck. With now both hands burned, one severely more so, she was having a hard time standing in her dragon form. Meanwhile, the villain slowly got on his feet. The hit she landed wasn't full force, but it was enough to make him cough blood. The moment he spat and it hit the floor, a lot of steam started to come from it. Her eyes widened in realization. Haha, yes, that's right. It's my blood skinning you alive, you giant gecko, the villain said, pointing the arm cannon at her face. Rukiyu ducked to avoid the shot, covering some of the distance and making a swipe with her whole body, and hitting him in the process with her tail. Again, it wasn't a strike at full power because she couldn't properly use her front claws to shift her weight. Just that little trick made them hurt even more. The dragon hero hissed, staring at the villain getting up again. Even in her current state, it should have caused some serious damage, and damage it did as the man coughed up some more blood. How? This guy can't be that resistant. The villain struggled to his feet, but eventually got up again, laughing like a maniac. All right, that one hurt like a bitch, I'll give you that. Now, before I make a bag out of you, Rukiyu, why don't I tell you my name? You pros love this little show, so we better make sure everyone remembers it when I get the next hero, and the next, and the next. He raised his arm towards her. The name is Napalm. Remember to tell everyone in Hell Before Napalm could finish his cheesy line, something knocked him to the side. He didn't have much time to see what it was, considering it didn't feel like something solid, yet it felt like a cannonball. Right after, something tightened around him, and the world spun around, only to halt abruptly when his back met the floor with great strength. From the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of sparks and something green. "Sorry for the delay, Rukyu-san," he said, jumping between the fallen villain and the dragon hero. There were lots of civilians to move back. There he was, Deku holding a defensive stance right in front of her. "It's okay, their safety is the priority. Arg. Are you hurt?" "I'll live, but standing is kind of a problem. Deku, that villain, is unusually resilient. It probably has something to do with that injection from earlier," she said, limping closer to the young man. Quirk-enhancing drugs, Kirishima did say he and Tetsutetsu were working on some cases with Fatgum. "That means this guy will burn out soon, so you just have to hold on for a while longer. Beware, his blood is extremely hot and the arm cannon can pressurize it. It can even damage my scales." Rukyu looked at her claws. One of them was severely more burnt than the other. She didn't dare think what would it do to that kid if this villain was to. No, now was not the time to think of these things. "Ha, ha 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 ha, I'm still alive," Napalm shouted as he got up again, with another vial in his hand. Without hesitation, he injected another dose of the enhancement drug, and the effects were quick and very noticeable. His skin got beet red, and the already popped-up veins looked like they would explode any second. Steam came out of his mouth, showing the furnace that was inside the body. "This can't be good for him," Deku said. "Neither it is to us. Move," Rukyu shouted, turning back to her human form and splitting with Deku as Napalm shot right where they stood. "This is an insane amount of blood that he's shooting out of his body," Deku thought. "Anyone would be dead by now. His quirk probably includes generating blood faster, or perhaps that's another effect of the enhancing drugs. What a terrible substance." Nana's voice sounded inside his head. She wasn't particularly familiar with these drugs, but she heard of rumors when she was alive. Word spread out that you could turn an even fight into a slaughter with a single injection, but there was also the great withdrawal on the user's body and potential for addiction. This put all the rumors she heard to shame. To think the underground would go so far in making stronger versions of these horrendous substances. This is far from a normal quantity of blood coming out. He'll eventually run out, or his body simply won't be able to handle it for much longer. I have to subdue him quickly. Deku was forming a plan as he jumped around, dodging the blood jet streams that threatened to scald him alive. All that while Napalm kept on with his manic laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha, you're fun to play with, kid. Do you want me to kill the dragon bitch first? Or would you rather take her place in the queue?" "I choose neither because..." He evaded with a roll, then jumped on and off a wall, holding on to a lamp post to change his trajectory. As he flew above Napalm, Deku wrapped a black whip tendril around the villain's cannon arm and pulled him up. "You're going down right now, Manchester Smash." Reeling in the villain, Deku landed a vertical axe kick and Napalm plummeted to the street floor. Deku used around 12% of his strength, so while it wouldn't kill, this guy would definitely be unconscious. The green teen took in deep breaths to stabilize his heartbeat. He was surprised with himself at how well he managed to sink Black Whip and Full Cowl. He was making progress, but now wasn't the time to dwell on this. Rushing back to Rukyu, Deku carefully checked her bruises. Burnt hands, a small red streak on her neck, and apparently some of her shoulder got hurt too, matching the damage in her wing. "Sorry I took so long, Rukyu-san. Because of me you..." "Don't be dumb, Deku. I gave you an instruction and you followed through. Besides, you should know better than anyone that it is part of the job," she said with a gentle smile, despite her face showing clear signs of pain. Seeing this boy being washed with relief by her words spurred a feeling within her. Rukyu wanted to pet him on the head. Even with her burnt hands, it wouldn't hurt that much since his green mane looked so soft and... What am I thinking? She stared at Deku as he inspected her hands closer. His mouth was moving, but she didn't quite register the sounds that were coming out. Rather, the blondie got more aware of their current positions relative to one another. She stood there with her hands resting on his, her palms facing upwards, while Deku assessed the damage. Apparently, he said something about carrying first aid supplies as Todoroki did. Rukiu simply nodded and agreed, again not really paying attention. Should they stay this close to one another? Could they stay closer? Then she felt her body being pushed down to the floor. Once again her brain was lagging behind in registering what was happening around her. As for Deku, he looked very troubled about how Rukiu got hurt. Even if she said it wasn't his fault, he felt at least responsible. If he acted faster, then this could possibly be avoided. More speed. Maruko jumps into action incredibly fast. Hawks made it to second place by solving cases in a short time span too. If I want to be the number one, I have to react. Something in his mind clicked. He was in the middle of a thought, and suddenly it was halted by a ringing, a feeling of danger. And as many times before, his body acted before his mind, tackling Rukiu down to the floor, right on time to evade the surprise jet stream of blood that went over their heads. "Are you kidding? What's up with that guy?" he said, getting on his knees as he shielded Rukiu. Both heroes stared in shock as Napalm got on his feet again. Sort of. The villain was breathing heavily, his skin still red. The blood that dripped from his mouth let out a thin smoke. Leaning in one knee, he could barely keep the arm cannon raised, but it was aimed at them. Despite the pain-ridden expression, he laughed. "TCH, ha 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 ha, I won't go down that easily. I won't accept being killed by a true hero. I won't go down for anything less, you hear me? Ha 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 ha." He fired again. Deku flinched to evade, but Rukiu was right behind him. Instead, he reacted by making a roundhouse kick strong enough to create a gust of wind. Louis Smash Air Force. Deku succeeded in blocking the shot, although it splattered around them. Just how powerful was this compressed blood shooter? "I will not let you harm her," Deku shouted. He had to make a decision quickly. Was he fast enough to cover the distance between them and take down Napalm before he could fire at Rukiu again? What about Black Whip? Would it be fast enough to ensnare the villain? He didn't test its maximum range yet. Perhaps if he channeled some of one for all into it. "Then you can die first, poser." Another blood shot, successfully blocked by another gust of wind. Deku still couldn't believe just how much of the scarlet liquid got weaponized. "I'm not a poser, and neither is Rukiu." Lies. There are no true heroes in this trash country, only fakers seeking money and fame, and all of you can drop dead. Another shot, another block. Deku thought that by now this guy would run out of steam, be it his vital fluids of the quirk enhancer, but so far it didn't seem to be the case. As that exchange went on, Rukiu watched from behind the green-haired teen. Her hands hurt, and so did her shoulder. It made it kinda hard to get up as Deku had forced her to lie on the floor, but she could have done it already, albeit slower than usual. Rather, something else kept her in place. 3 moves, Izuku. Finish this in 3 moves. He thought to himself, mapping his course of action. Block the next time he fires, power your legs with the maximum percentage you can without breaking anything and dash, then hit him square in the face with a Detroit smash. Blindside him with sheer speed. I can do it. I can do it. His emerald green eyes focused on the target. His entire body was tense and ready to move, like a spring about to be released. He repeated the plan inside his head over and over. The two sides remained silent for a moment, and even the air seemed to be still. Then it came. Napalm fired another jet stream. Deku blocked it with his St. Louis smash, but this time he kept the momentum of his kicking leg to spin on the other foot. Planting them firmly on the ground, he crouched, similarly to how Maruko did the other day. Sparks flew from his body, and he dashed forward. Detroit, he covered the distance in an instant. Sma. Deku had his target. He fist back to deck this guy in the face and put him to sleep for good this time. He was fast, he had all the means to do it. He just didn't imagine there was some sort of automatic function to this villain's blood cannon. Napalm's grin widened and his face was the book definition of insanity. A shot at this distance would surely spill the scalding blood on himself, and unless he was also impervious to heat on the outside, he was going to have a bad time just like Deku. The green teen had seen this kind of reckless abandon for the sake of an arbitrary objective once before, and both times he faced Muscular were pretty dire situations. Good thing his full cowl increased his reflexes, otherwise Deku would be done for. If blood was hot enough to hurt Rukyu's scales, then he dared not think of what it would do to his skin. Using the momentum, he managed to turn the Detroit into a California smash. The resulting whirlwind was strong enough to push Napalm's arm out of aim, and the fired jet stream would hit a nearby building. Seriously, the range of that thing was scary. And another thing Deku didn't account for at the moment he dashed forward. Just how fast he was going. He sort of body slammed Napalm, but since he was spinning, the villain was sent tumbling to the sides while Deku landed on the wall, leaving a small crack on it. He could definitely use some of Maruko's lessons since she seemed very knowledgeable in how to spin and how to stop spinning. Regardless, the young hero in training got up dizzy. He was seeing at least 4 Rukius across the street. It shouldn't be a surprise by now, but at the same time, Napalm was getting back up. Whatever was injected into his bloodstream seemed to make him nigh invincible. Or at least the dude felt like that. The same couldn't be said for his equipment, however, as it was pretty battered from all those hard punches and being tossed around. With that creepy grinning look still on his face, he took aim at Deku again. "It's game over for you, kid." There was the sound of something creaking, a clack, and hissing of gas escaping. Then boom, the arm cannon's pressure chamber blew up, making a bloody mess on the spot. Deku looked in shock at the horror show as a considerable amount of blood splattered, and as he imagined, it was very unhealthy to the villain's skin. The bastard was lucky only a few drops splashed on him, but still, the pain must feel terrible. "Aha!" the villain hauled, yanking the broken piece from his partially burnt arm. "That piece of garbage, I told him to test that shit first." Apparently, he was angrier at the catastrophic failure than anything. Napalm then faced Deku again, and for once he didn't look like he belonged in a high-security asylum. "Listen, hero. This is far from over. I will come for you and your false idols later, and I'll personally skin that dragon bitch alive." Perhaps it was because of the direct insults to Rukyu's name and image, but that bravado really pissed off Deku. "The only thing you're going to do is stay put in a cell," he said, getting ready to repeat the previous stunt, this time without the danger of having his skin removed by heat. However, out of nowhere a sandstorm engulfed the area. He couldn't see a thing, having to cover his eyes, but he could hear the crazy laughter of the villain. Once it died out, Napalm had vanished and only the bloodstains remained, along with the broken piece of gear. Deku stood still for a while, dumbfounded, then started to look around for possible escape routes. This confirmed that the villain had an ally to some extent, which only made things worse with that escape. On alert mode still, he made his way back to check on the dragon hero. She wasn't any more hurt than before and was equally confused as to what just happened. Between the quirk-enhancing drugs, that specific arm cannon, and a villain set on killing pro-heroes, this case had too much to digest in one take, but at least they managed to have 0 casualties from that. Later that day, Midoriya would follow Tatsuma to the nearest hospital to get her wounds treated. He suggested paying a visit to Recovery Girl at UA, but she politely refused. It wasn't the first time she got hurt and certainly wouldn't be the last, and it wasn't that serious to ask for the sweet old lady's healing powers. Instead, right after getting some bandages, the blondie headed back to her office. Midoriya again suggested that it would be better for her to rest a little, but she had a sense of urgency. What happened today, this entire event, didn't feel like an isolated case. That suspicion she had in the back of her head for a while felt even stronger. The increase in small criminal activity, the similar sentiment of being unjustified, and now a complete disdain for the institution the professional heroes stood for. This wasn't exactly fresh news to her. Ever since Stain became a notorious figure in the criminal underworld, his fame made its way into the talk of the masses, and that made people start to question some things about the heroes. Not directly like the former hero killer, but subconsciously, the people made judgments about the more prominent figures in the hero ranking, and it only got worse with All Might's retirement. Truth be told, none of them could hope to fill in the massive gap that All Might left. The man had set the bar way up, and while everyone strived to be like him in some way, none could quite fit the bill. In a way, All Might made the rest of the pro-heroes look kinda bad in perspective. Endeavor was doing his best to keep the public opinion high, but he wasn't exactly the charismatic beacon of hope the former number one was. Everyone was aware of those facts to some level, and now a greater picture was starting to form. Or maybe it was always there, and only now Tatsuma was taking a broader view of it. Whatever was the case, she felt that the previous incidents and this one were somewhat connected. Sure, civil unrest was a thing, and one would assume that it was a negative feedback loop where cases of criminal activity made other small fish feel bold enough to break the law and so on, but still. Today was different. It was an attack directed at the pro-heroes, an attack directed at her and what she stood for. It was personal in a way, and that made her worry that this problem ran deeper than it appeared to. Tatsuma walked with Midoriya by her side, following her hasty steps. "You can go back to UA now, Midoriya. I'll check on Maruko and Nejair, and then dismiss her too for today." "Is there something worrying you, Rukiyu-san? I mean, more than the death threats." She didn't respond at all. "Rukiyu-san?" Her head perked up. "Ah, sorry. What was that?" "It's okay. I would be nervous too if I had a target behind my back." He wasn't sure if all pro-heroes had to deal with this specific kind of pressure, nor if he was supposed to just shrug it off. Whatever was the case, the woman next to him looked pretty worried about it. Seeing that look in his eyes, Tatsuma let out a small sigh, shaking her head. She wasn't supposed to make her interns worry like this. "I just don't like the outlook for this case. Isolated, yes, it is a bit unsettling, but I think there's something else, and that could mean much more trouble in the future." Unknown to her, Midoriya shared some of that grim feeling for the future. The mission passed to him was always weighing within his chest, but he decided to put in practice some of what Hado-senpai did all the time. Instead of keeping a dark look on his face, he mustered a bright smile to cheer the dragon hero. "Well, whatever comes out of it, I'm sure you're perfectly capable of handling it, Rukiyu-san. You are one of our best heroes, after all," he said, irradiating fanboy and positive energy. "Today's events would beg to differ, and I did fall one position in the ranking. That was only because you were protecting me and everyone around. No one would think less of you for that. Besides, that villain had some nerve to run that mouth." She noticed the tone shift of his voice, and when she looked at him, Midoriya was frowning slightly, with his hands balled into fists. Most bad guys banter like this. That one didn't look very good in the head either. Don't let that get to you. "I know, but still," he looked so indignant. It was almost cute to look at. "I've met a villain this crazy before, and they simply don't care about anything other than themselves. And this one calling you names really pissed me off." "Really? Why is that so?" she asked, both surprised and curious. "Because," his mild anger turned into a passion as he spoke. "The ranking isn't like that for no reason. Everything he said is wrong, and you deserve the place for all the people you saved, Rukiyu-san. Dismissing the ones who risk their lives every day for the sake of others, I can't stand it." She held a sympathetic look towards him. This kid was a hero through and through. She could see why Kayama liked him, in a way. "That, and he called you some names," Midoriya added, a little shyer this time. "It wouldn't be the first time either." She dismissed it casually. "Well, my mom taught me to be polite to girls, so it kind of made me mad. Just a bit more." "A mama's boy, huh?" she thought out loud without realizing, looking forward. She also didn't notice her hasty steps slowed to a normal walk. Meanwhile, Midoriya got a faint pink tinge adorning his cheeks, mostly because Nana was teasing him about that comment inside his mind, but Rukiyu didn't know that. All she knew was that this teenager she turned to look at again was way too cute, flushed like this, especially considering this same teenager could easily match her in strength. Sigh still, you should go back to UA Midoriya. The hero work study is for you students to gain field experience, not be locked in a room doing paperwork. I know that, but I want to help if I can. Two heads think more than one, right? Perhaps, but that's beside the point. I don't even know where to start looking. I was pondering asking Centipter for help in the cases of the past weeks, but I didn't think much ahead of that. It can lead to nothing. Even if we don't find anything, I want to help, Rukiyu-san. Because, well, your hands. She looked at her bandaged hands. It wasn't that serious of an injury thanks to her scales, and the ointment and painkiller alleviated the discomfort, but it would be a little clumsy to hold things for a while. She shook her head slightly and sighed. Tatsuma should know better than to let her love for children influence her decisions. Although Midoriya wasn't quite a child anymore, he still had that energy to him. I suppose I could use a hand for a while. Midoriya's smile widened in excitement, but he quickly tried to make a serious face, perhaps because it was a pretty serious situation they were dealing with. Before she realized it, they were back at her agency, and there they met Nejier-chan and Maruko. The brunette rushed to them the moment she spotted the dragon hero and the emerald child. Rukiyu-san, I heard in the news about what happened. Hado had a worried face as she looked at the blondie's bandaged hands. Don't worry, I'm fine. It was just first-degree burns, thanks to my scales, but I won't be fighting with them for a while. Rukiyu looked at her hands for a moment, then went inside. I said it to Midoriya, and I'll extend it to you, Nejier. You can go back to UA early today. There's something I need to do here. Wait. Are you not going to take a rest? The brunette inquired, following the dragon hero. Maybe later. Right now I want to at least start looking into it. However, before she could enter her office, Rukiyu felt a hand on her shoulder. Looking back, the dark-skinned lady held a somber stare at her. It wasn't a common look for Maruko to have. Tatsuma, who was that guy? She asked surprisingly quietly. I don't know yet. He called himself Napalm. Never heard of him before. Napalm, huh? All right, got it, she said and turned to leave. Rukiyu knew Maruko to some extent, enough to know this wasn't a good sign. Wait, what are you going to do? Isn't it obvious? She said, turning her head to look back. It became clear from the look on her face that she was pissed off. I'm going to find. Maruko then marched to the front door, but Rukiyu suddenly blocked the way. Don't go out there to do something stupid. This might be a serious case. Yeah, it is serious. You got hurt, and there's another idiot out there playing Judge Dredd with heroes. Now get out of my way, Tatsuma. No, listen. This is not the time to act recklessly. No, you listen. We did things your way. Now we're going to do my way. Or don't. Keep here with your files or whatever. Just don't get in my way and don't slow me down. You think you can just hop around and stumble on that villain? I heard he was pretty psyched about meeting you. Seeing the 5th place of the top 10 will make his day. And then what? You'll kick him until his bones turn into dust? Is that a suggestion? Maruko, this is not the time to act on impulse. It's not the time to be sitting on your ass either. How much worse do things have to get so everyone will cut the crap and get to the action? How many more hero killers and black mutant monsters until we crack down on those assholes? The two pro-heroes stood in front of each other, so this is what was bothering her. The temporary team-up, her pushes for forgetting the procedures and simply kick some bad guys into jail made more sense now. Frankly, Rukiyu understood where Maruko was coming from. That black Namu was something else entirely, and it took all of Endeavor's strength and then some to stop it. What was worse, Maruko herself didn't do much against the creature. Under other circumstances, Rukiyu would assume it was Maruko's giant ego talking, and the rabbit hero was looking for a rematch of sorts to prove she was strong. But it wasn't the case here. Despite not saying it like everyone else, she was concerned about the current situation of society, and why wouldn't she? Reckless and with a distaste for rules as she was, Maruko was as much of a hero as she was. Look, this might be just the tip of the iceberg, even if you succeed. Are you implying I wouldn't absolutely beat the shit out of that villain? No, what I'm trying to say is that even if you did that, and I know you can, this could make us lose the trail. What trail? The trail to something else, something bigger. Something that you don't know if it exists or not. Do you want to bet? Maybe risk another shy Hesekai spreading their influence under the radar. The air was crackling with tension, and both students stood there in the back, completely silent and looking at each other and at the two pro-heroes. Luckily, Rukiyu managed to convince the enraged rabbit to some extent. Sigh, whatever. Just find whatever you have to quickly so I can get to kick some sorry asses faster too. You point me in the direction, and I go there. Rukiyu felt relief wash over her as she succeeded in reasoning with Maruko. She had the fame of being quite hard-headed at times. Honestly, I'm hoping to not find anything at all. We definitely don't need another crazy leader trying to flip society upside down. With that, the tension in the air vanished and Rukiyu headed to the office with Maruko following behind. The two heroes in training were stuck in surprise for a moment, then followed suit. Are you going back to UA, Midoriya-kun? Hado questioned him. No, I want to help. What about you, senpai? She brought a finger over her lips as she thought about it. No, I'll stay too. Rukiyu-sen looks like she needs a lot of help, and we didn't patrol together today. Wait, what does the last bit have to do with the rest? He asked, confused. We're partners, aren't we? I suppose so. Then we have to work together, until death do us part, right? That's not the same kind of partners, senpai. Oh no, but it sounded so nice, she said, apparently diving in thought about the phrase she learned. Meanwhile, Midoriya was busy impersonating a strawberry and thinking that his senpai could be a massive airhead at times. As the remaining hours of the day passed, the small team worked on the past weeks of activities that Rukiyu insisted on keeping registered. Well, at least half of them. Yuzujama flopped on the couch, and there she stood, doing her best to remain in place despite her infinite boredom. As for Midoriya, he was stuck between trying to make sense of the info in front of him and helping Hado do the same. She admitted this analytic work wasn't her forte. Tatsuma reassured her that it was not a problem, since no one can be good at everything. Besides, she was also out of her playing field here. The goal was to find something they could start with and then bring it to a better suited team. The day was ending. The sun was almost below the horizon, and they didn't find anything of relevance. Also, Tatsuma was starting to feel the tiredness catching up to her body and mind. Maybe she should have rested as Midoriya and Hado suggested. It was that feeling nagging at the back of her mind, telling her there was something wrong in all of this, as if the answer was right in front of her. Well, what if it was, but not the answer she was expecting? Her tired yellow eyes blurred a little. She moved to rub them with her fingers, but stopped when she remembered about the bandages. She thought of washing her face, but it would also be kind of a challenge. Sighing in frustration, the blonde woman questioned herself about her goals right now. Was she trying to prove something to someone? She did feel like she was underperforming, so perhaps it was all a plan of her mind to show she was a capable hero. Her eyes then moved up from the files and fell on the figure of the green-haired teen. He was focused on the task at hand, maybe even more than her. Occasionally, Hado would get his attention, and despite the tedious work, they seemed to be having some resemblance of a good time. Or was that the impression Hado caused from always having a smile on her face? They were from different years at UA, so she didn't think they spent a lot of time together. Yet, their teamwork was remarkably good and synced, and Tatsuma admired how Midoriya could learn and grow so fast. Ah yes, he was a boy full of surprises. some more shocking than others, she supposed. The dragon lady tried to banish these thoughts from her mind, which wasn't that hard to begin with. Most of that night was blurred in her memories, as the party at Usajama's apartment had a lot of alcohol at their disposal. Still, two things were very clear in her mind aside from the fight at Yue. 1. The sheer look of desperation on Kayama's face after the confusion with the portals subsided. And 2. The revelation that both Kayama and Takayama had slept with a student, the very same student sitting in front of her right now. Up until now, Tatsuma had effectively banished these thoughts from her mind, both for her own sanity and to better keep this secret for her friend. She considered bringing this up again with the R-rated hero, but after seeing the emotional state Kayama was in while Midoriya and the other students were missing, and right after the rescue, the dragon hero understood this feeling ran deep within. It was enough to make Tatsuma keep her mouth shut, but she was still conflicted. You see, she had a soft spot for children, and the idea that someone like Midnight was having intercourse with a kid like Midoriya set all kinds of alarms in her head. Sure, Kayama wasn't a terrible person, not by a great margin, but Tatsuma couldn't help but wonder how this had changed Midoriya. She didn't know him all that well, but she knew of his determination and drive to save others, as well as his strength. Those she had witnessed when they raided the Shy Hasakai hideout. The hero work study only confirmed her opinions that he was a good kid and a great hero in training with the potential for greatness. What didn't sit very well with her was the idea of Kayama exploring other sides of his potential. She felt bad for doing this, being so suspicious of Midnight, knowing the woman would never dare hurt a child, let alone one of her students, but it was such a wild idea. And being honest, it fitted perfectly with Kayama's dominant persona. An adult, mature, sexy woman taking an innocent kid like Midoriya and leading him through the path of pleasure and lust. Give her the bat-like wings, the horns, the tail with a heart at the tip, and you would have the perfect depiction of a succubus. Stop it, Ruko. You know Nimuri isn't like that, all the time. Whether or not Kayama loved Midoriya as she said she did, it didn't change things much, at least to the dragon lady. She couldn't see herself doing something like that, even less to someone like Midoriya. I don't think I could even if I wanted, which I don't. I mean, look at him. He's adorable. The blondie stared at him. Well, she focused on him, as she had been looking at his figure for a while now, mind absent and lost in inner thoughts. She had reasoned that before, but it was a fact. Midoriya looked too cute for someone of his strength, which was one of the reasons why she sent him the invitation to begin with. For his strength and potential, that is, not because he was cute. Watching him interact with Hado also made her wonder if he was popular at school. He seemed to be more of the nerdy, shy type, given how he was nervous around her and the brunette. Tatsuma wouldn't be surprised if he had at least a couple of girls with a crush on him. It made her remember her kid days. Up to middle school, changing into a dragon was almost as cool as one person could be, but didn't make for a good trait when you're trying to be attractive, she soon learned. That and her latent dragon behavior. Sometimes she felt an urge within her, a desire from deep within to do some things like hoarding things precious to her and mark her territory. It wasn't strong like someone with a mutation quirk, but it was there, a minor suggestion to act in the ways of the dragons from books and games. Way back then she loved to act as a true dragon from the legends, but Tatsuma grew out of it. Except for some rare occasions where it reappeared. The feeling made her nostalgic. What didn't make her feel good, however, was the way the white-haired, dark-skinned woman lying on the couch looked at him. It was as if Usajama was undressing the poor teen with her bright, ruby-red eyes, and she wasn't even trying to hide it, as the two students would have to turn around completely to see it. Tatsuma could see it clearly, though, and that triggered the dragon lady to glare at that unrestrained rabbit. If she had heat vision, there would be a hole in Usajama's body already from all that intense glaring. The woman glanced up, then did a double take when she saw Tatsuma staring daggers at her. Both women entered a fierce staring contest. Usajama hadn't given up on that crazy idea yet, which was one of the reasons why Tatsuma chose to patrol with Midoriya today. It didn't have anything to do with a little tingling of happiness inside her chest by having the young man riding her back through the sky. Regardless, the blondie wouldn't let that horny rabbit have her ways with Midoriya. He was Nimiri's. Should she really defend Kayama in this? Sure, she ultimately decided to keep the secret, but it didn't mean she had to agree with what was happening. Rather, Tatsuma could talk her out of this idea. Perhaps it was her duty as an adult to tell Midoriya that his relationship with Midnight was questionable at best, and that he should at least go with someone younger like her. Full stop. Tatsuma shook her head. What was she thinking now? Being the 10th best hero of Japan and having asked the Emerald Child to come here for the work study, it could be even worse if she made a move on him. Then again, he slept with Midnight and Empty Lady, two very popular heroes. How much worse could it get? Coming to think of it, would it be that bad if I waited for a little while? I bet he would look even more attractive by then. No, stop. She was feeling tired, and it was getting hard to focus. Well, focus on anything that wasn't the green-haired teen in the room. But unfortunately, that would change really quickly. Maruko let out a loud groan from her place on the couch, then jumped to her feet. This is getting us nowhere. Midoriya, come here, she said, walking past the two teens and grabbing Midoriya by the hoodie and dragging him along. He didn't have much time to protest. Wait, Maruko-san, we're still looking for. I know, and you're obviously not making progress, so you gotta clear your head, then come back and look from another angle. The rabbit hero explained. Where do you think you're going, Usajima? Tatsuma raised from her desk once she broke out of her inner thoughts, only to see Midoriya being dragged around. The brunette simply watched with an amused face. To the rooftop. You don't mind, do you? Even if she did, the rabbit lady didn't wait to listen. Upstairs they went and Tatsuma followed, with a curious Hado after her. How are we going to clear our heads at the rooftop, Maruko-san? He asked, quite confused. Whenever I feel troubled I go to the gym, so we're going to train together, you and me. You did want me to teach you some moves, right? Oh, I see. He wasn't expecting to receive lessons from Maruko so soon. Actually, now that he thought about it, he was about to take some personal lessons from none other than the rabbit hero. So Midoriya got more excited and nervous. Or maybe it was the proximity to her chest area as the dark-skinned woman held him by the neck under her arm. The door to the rooftop swung open and out came the pro hero, dragging the young man in training. She took a deep breath in and stretched her arms out, releasing some tense muscles. The air is quite refreshing tonight, so what are you waiting for? Do some stretches. I'll just laugh at you if you get cramps or something, she said, bending in half to touch her toes. She stretched her legs with much ease, and it also should be noted that the woman had her back to Midoriya, so the teen inadvertently got a small show to watch, even more considering her tight hero costume. Shaking his head, he got to stretch his limbs too, oblivious to the smirk crossing her lips. Well, are you done yet? She said, taking a couple of steps away from him. Hi, he answered, standing across the rooftop at an equal distance. From the sidelines, Tatsuma and Hado watched, one of them with curiosity and the other with a vigilant, suspicious look on her face. With a hand on her hips, she raised one finger and began her lessons. The first thing you have to learn is, be the fastest to react. You know, those very old cowboy standoffs? It's like that. Be the quicker draw. She explained, and Midoriya nodded. Now, come at me. Come, she repeated, taking a fighting stance. You want me to attack you? Yeah, how else am I supposed to teach you? Maruko sounded like she just stated the obvious. Midoriya shivered at the memories from the last time he faced a pro hero, but he has been through so much already. It couldn't possibly end as badly as before, so the teen activated full cowl, took a running stance, and dashed forward. He aimed to tackle Maruko, and when he was close to her, he jumped for it. And he missed. Maruko evaded by flipping over him, sticking the landing as a top-tier gymnast. Midoriya landed with a roll and looked back where she was. It was as if she didn't even move. What are you looking at? Again, she commanded, not bothering to fully turn back. Midoriya tried the tackle again, this time using a higher percentage of 1 for all to increase his speed, but the result was the same. He did 1, 2, 3 more times, always ending with a dumbfounded face. Yes, she was more experienced than him, but he didn't think he was that far behind in physical attributes. Come on, Deku, I know you can do better. Give me your max. She held a wide grin that was calling no, defying him to go to his limit. Not that he took offense in that, he understood what she was trying to do. So Midoriya focused and increased the output as much as he could before his muscles started to feel strained. 20% full cowl. I'm ready, he said with a confident look in his eyes. Yeah, I can see. Come. She liked that somewhat fierce look he had right now. Midoriya dashed forward like a bolt of green lightning. This time he was sure he would grab Maruko. There was no way she could react that fast. Too easy. Well, she just did. Maruko bent her knees and leaned back, with her body almost parallel with the floor, while the Emerald Teen flew by over her. What was worse, with all that extra power, Midoriya jumped much farther this time. If it wasn't for the small wall on the rooftop, he would have gone way over the ledge. He hit the said wall though, similar to what happened earlier this day. As he got up, rubbing his side that ended cushioning the impact, Maruko offered a hand. The second thing you have to learn, sometimes there is such a thing as going too fast, she said, making air quotes. Shocking, I know. This one will be easy to remember, he said to himself, but her keen ears caught that. Ha, good one, kid, ha 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 ha. Now let's try this again, but this time try not to land on the wall face first, she said, walking Midoriya back to the center of their new, improvised training grounds. At the doorway, Tatsuma kept on her vigilant watch. She understood it was a necessity and that Midoriya could benefit greatly from Maruko's knowledge, but it still made her feel weird, particularly the way the rabbit lady interacted with him. Having a jovial spirit was one thing, but Usajima was getting way too handsy with Midoriya for Tatsuma's liking. There was really no need to have that hand around his shoulder as they walked along, neither to go by with their hips almost touching. Maruko-sen seems to be having fun, Hado commented casually. Yeah, perhaps too much fun at it, Tatsuma said between grumbles. What? What? Deciding it would be best to keep her mouth shut, the dragon lady turned her gaze back to the two training together. She really wished Midoriya had returned to UA earlier today. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Everyone Gets Obsessed with Deku and Harem. I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to Guy number 23 for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on fanfiction.net for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.